Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on day 2 and the final day of the SATNAC 2024 conference. You all are looking very good and are ready for a packed afternoon and morning sessions, of course. A very important milestone that this conference has really come to, 26 years of excellence and innovation, I say. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say I've kept my promise. We have air cons, we have a very cool room. That means you have no excuse for leaving this room. And I think we do need to clap to that. Thank you so much to everyone who has organized that. Well, again, welcome to everybody, and welcome, of course, to our esteemed guests, the chair and the GCEO of Telkom, again joining us this morning. Thank you so much, sirs, for your time. The executives of Telkom, of course, the various CEOs and MDs of our sponsors, and, of course, important delegation of students from various institutions who are here this morning with us. Again, thank you so much for your time. Of course, another day of interpreting the theme of this particular conference, and that, of course, is the IA-driven, hyper-connected future, co-creating a shared value. Today, like yesterday, is about excellence as we immerse ourselves in these various discussions as well as presentations. We also have later on in the morning of this program, we have a high-level panel discussion that will be moderated by the Telkom SA Group's Chief Digital Officer, Silo Makau, titled Redefining Telecommunications, Telcos of the Future. I'm looking forward to that. What I'm also looking forward to, and I'm very excited about, is that we will be announcing today the SATNAC Industry Challenge winners. Now, that is a process that has been running very parallel to this conference, a challenge posed to students from various institutions in terms of responding and answering questions to challenges that are very key and central to communities in our country. And they cut across various sectors: health sector, the education sector, the connectivity sector. So these are very interesting projects then that they undertook. So we will hear today about some of those projects and who the winners are. And I do compel and advise you to go to these exhibition centers and just read up on some of the problem challenges that the students had to undertake and address. These are really, really cutting edge stuff. And of course, it does bring, a lot of questions in to what we are doing in South Africa, just given the presentations that we saw yesterday morning and during the course of the day. What are we doing to advance, some of the technology that is before us? I'm going to draw reference again from what the minister said, and in fact also emphasized by the GCEO, that we are being left behind as Africa and in the African continent. So conferences are great. Challenges to students are great. We need the finances. We need the political will. We need the reforms, the policies to make these successes. We need the partnerships from private sectors, because SATNAC, as well as the Telkom's, COE, Centers of Excellence, are just one of those very key partnerships from a private sector perspective, from a public sector perspective, that are actually winning. And it's important and it's compelling to see that business is supporting this. And that is why last night we held a ceremony just thanking some of our sponsors for being here with us, for being in the arena. And when I end the conference today, I'm going to just define what that means, being in the arena of doing the work. And that is what everybody in this room is doing. So thank you so much again for your time. Another interesting conference that we are going to be having this afternoon. And I do not want to waste any more time, so allow me please to welcome on stage our very first speaker for this morning and on our second and last day of conference. Of course, I need to just give you, in terms of her profile, who she is and what she'll be talking to us about today. It is Dr. Nokolo Kubeka Dlamini. She's the Chief Digital and Information Officer, Telkom Consumer and Small Business. and her topic today will be AI-driven, hyper-personalized future. I'm looking forward to that. If you will allow me, Dr. Kubeka Dlamini, to just tell our delegates who you are. Nokolo is a senior executive with a demonstrable experience across multiple industries. Her experience spans across different ICT disciplines as a multidisciplinary specialist. Her experience ranges from assisting business executives in the articulation and execution of digital business strategy in line with strategic business priorities and corporate strategy to the implementation of innovative and digital solutions with impact. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good to see a few people that made it. This morning I was a bit worried, being the first speaker. Thank you very much for the opportunity, our ExCo, our executives, our partners, and all the leadership that is amongst us today. I don't take this opportunity lightly, because others will be asking what gives you the authority to be even addressing it in such a prestigious conference. So thank you very much. So what I am going to be talking to you about is the AI-driven, hyper-personalized future, right? Personalized future in an AI-driven, hyper-connected conference. Thank you. To kick us off, we often talk about the new normal. The new normal? In my view, we are beyond the new normal. I mean, if you look at the inconsistency, uncertainty, fragility, complexity, and everything that we are faced with as business, it's now was a normal and then was a new normal. I do believe that we are beyond the new normal. And it does call for us to do certain things differently. So if you look at the economic instability, I'm not going to say much. If anything, is that when things happen, we no longer get surprised. It's like, oh, well, how bad is it? What's the impact? Consequences. I mean, the climate crisis, I mean, KZN has been undergoing a lot of pressure, stress, technology advancements. That's why we're here. There is no society, no business, no industry that's not impacted. Cybercrime, the hackers are there capitalizing on the very advancements to make sure that they keep up the pace so that they can do what they do best. If you look at the competition, I mean, we are operating in a very competitive space. That competition is increasing, which is also meaning that we need to look beyond what we're able to do, think outside of the box to be able to respond to the competition. VUCA. I mean, I think we are slowly going beyond VUCA. As much as the issues of complexity, the issues of uncertainty are still amongst us, but for us to survive, we need to be thinking beyond VUCA. We are in a bunny world, whether we like it or not, where we live in constant shock in terms of the activities, the developments, the things that are happening around, destruction, unfathomable and complex consequences. This is very important because we're serving the consumers. If we don't take the time to understand how they're impacted by the events, the advancement of technologies and stuff like that, we're not going to be able to respond meaningfully to their requirements, meaningfully to their expectations, meaningfully to what they need us to provide as services as well as the products. In an AI-driven, hyper-personalized future, we really need to get to a point where we can accept that reality is really independent of human consciousness. Because if we miss this point, we are going to lag behind, we're not going to be impactful, we're not going to be relevant, because if you really think about it, everything that's happening is actually beyond what we can often comprehend. It's after the effects, it's after the shock, where we're like, oh, well, what does this mean? So for us to then understand the multiple realities, the expectations of the consumers that we serve, the experiences, their distinct tastes, as well as their preferences, really obligates us to act in a different way, act in line, be responsive. I'm getting there, Lunga. I'm getting there. So technology investments being dialed up. I'm not going to say much about this just to try and save time. This was covered by Prof. Benjamin yesterday in terms of the industry sitting in trillions, and not just the entire industry. You're looking specifically in terms of how AI has impacted the industry. If you're looking at AI intelligence, I mean, a lot has been said. I'm not going to repeat much of that. What I'm going to try and do today is to say, what does it mean for us? I mean, if you look at all the evolution, if you look at the artificial intelligence, as much as in part we've had technologies that have revolutionized us, but if you look at the artificial intelligence, it keeps on evolving. I mean, if you look at the subsets of AI, I mean, at some point it was AI and machine learning, and then it was deep learning, it's autonomous AI, we're talking GenAI, and we're talking artificial general intelligence now. I'm going to touch a little bit about that and what it means, because it really does challenge the status quo. And then, why does it matter? Why should this matter to us as Telkom, as an organization, the industry that's actually supporting us? Why does it matter? Why should we even be concerned and do something about it? Traditional approach, not traditional in the sense that it's obsolete, we're no longer needing it. We are going to continue to look at segmentation of our customers. We are going to continue to look at the personas. We are going to continue to drive the campaigns. But as we do that, we need to be moving into the space. Sorry. I thought I was pointing to the slide. We need to be looking to the predictive personalization. We have to. We have no choice. Where connecting with customers has meaning. They feel it. They don't doubt it. Contextual interactions, changing realities in real time. What do I mean by that? Is that as a consumer, when you're calling me and when you're trying to engage me, trying to sell that product, trying to upsell, I expect you to already know who I am. I expect you to know what's happening with me today in real time, so that you don't come with something that's either going to irritate me and I end up not taking up in fact, I'm not even prepared to listen to you. So we're talking about changing reality every day of a consumer, which means we need to, in real time, understand those that we're targeting, how that reality is changing, and what does it mean for them today as we're seeking to engage with them. I mean, it's simple. They're looking for digital solutions, targeted campaigns. Don't treat me as though I'm one of the people that are sitting here. Treat me as an individual. That's what I want. That's what I need. We need to be concise. Not all over the show. You can't be calling me and you're not sure why it is that you're calling me. You don't know what products do I have already and stuff like that. It needs to be timely. It needs to be convenient. It needs to be relevant. It needs to be authentic. I need to feel that you're connecting to me as a person. It really needs to be authentic. Users and use case relevancy. This, for me, is just as important as everything else that I've shared. So if you look at our consumers now, they want to express themselves authentically. And what that means, in the space where I'm an online consumer, I'm offline in the metaverse world, I need to know that you understand that. It needs to come true. So what this means is a challenge to all of us sitting here, is that what it is that we're doing to make sure that we are readying ourselves with the solutions that are relevant for the digital elastic identity of our consumers. Because they're there. We may not have solutions and aggressive solutions that are amplifying this, but in reality, we're there already. We also need to be careful of the use case trap. We're always talking use cases, use cases, use cases, use cases. Everybody that comes to sell use cases, I'm going to help you with these use cases, this and this and this use cases. I mean, we need to be careful of that. We must make sure that the use cases we're talking to are really informed by the insights that have been generated, the depth in understanding of our consumers, so that we manage our investments. I mean, we don't have an infinite pot of budget and funds. So we need to make sure that we are clear in terms of what it is that we're investing on at what time to capture what market. I mean, if you look at digital marketing, it's really becoming crowded. Everybody has a solution to sell, to help our digital marketing team to do something. And I mean, the discussions that we're having already, I mean, from an ROI, how did that process, that campaign, really translate into value? So these are the discussions that are now being held. To say, yes, it's good, all well and good, pumping money into the digital marketing. Let's capture these customers. Then let's engage them. Let's be there. The brand must be visible and stuff like that. But if it's done out of context, we're going to pump in money, invest in digital marketing, and when we sit and look at the ROI, we're not going to be very happy with ourselves. Notable trends driving AI. And these are key trends. And I was very specific that are currently being exploited. Because this is current. There's more. This is current. And what pains me about this picture is that we have plus a decade to two of these technologies being in place. But if you were to ask ourselves questions, how far have we exploited this? Really meaningfully making sure that we can link the revenue that gets generated to these technologies, to this. Yes, we're doing it, right? But I do believe that there is a gap and there's a challenge to us to make sure that we move fast and quick through this process of exploitation of these technologies, because they're already here. Because if we're going to move at a pace that we've been moving since the introduction of these technologies, by the time the technologies that I'm still going to talk to you guys about, they really get the momentum and the traction, we will still be struggling standing here, trying to mature this in terms of capitalizing on it, exploiting it. We need to we can't afford. My appeal is that we cannot afford to move at the pace that we have been moving over the past decade. We simply can't. Otherwise, we're going to add another decade of us being behind the curve. I mean, Lebo, I don't know if you are in here, or there is Lebo. You are covered. I made sure that you are covered. But we also need to make sure that we move into a space where, from a connectivity point of view, and our infrastructure, the availability to make sure that we have a connected customer, it becomes deterministic. Because if it is deterministic, it's reliable, it's guaranteed, it is there. As in, it is there. I know there are other challenges in terms of the power and theft and stuff like that, but we need to be investing our efforts to make sure that we get into a deterministic state with our network connectivity. Because if we don't, all these other technologies that we want to exploit, there's going to be limitations. Question mark. We need a mindset change. We need to confront our own anxiety when it comes to digital transformation. Because then it would quicken the pace that you're going to move, the maturity, to then realize our ambitions. The reality is, we are anxious about change. Even I'm anxious about it. As much as I have a responsibility to drive it, I've got pressure from Lunga to drive the digital transformation. But the reality is that I'm very anxious about it. It's an everyday thing. I live it daily. So, question mark. We don't have an infinite pot of money, but bottom line, the longer we delay, we defer the investments, the bigger the gap. That's fact. Indecision. because of that anxiety. We make a decision today, it takes us 2 weeks to implement, if we implement. But oftentimes, we make a decision, we rethink the decision a week later, and another week later. So the indecision is killing us, because it has a huge impact on the pace with which we move. It has a huge impact on the agility. You can't be agile if you find yourself trapped in here. Buy-in and authentic sponsorship. That's very important from multiple perspectives. True, meaningful, genuine partnerships. That's currency. That's really currency. And if we can get this or improve on this, I mean, in terms of the bottom line benefits, the targets, we'll get there. I mean, as Telkom and as businesses, we can't do this alone. We need true, meaningful, and genuine partnerships to our partners, from our partners. It's a win-win. We give some, you give some. We take, you take. Quick wins, that's what we're busy with. We've got a digital transformation office that's looking at quick wins, just to give us the relief. We need the relief so that we give ourselves an opportunity and space to then really engage in the digital transformation. But we can't stop everything just because you are busy in a digital transformation program or you are busy in a journey. You have to identify those quick wins, exploit them fully, because the revenue that you're going to generate would make sure that you have the space to then do what you need to do. But beyond that, you are freeing up funds that you require to be able to fully attack this big elephant. And then we need to take care of the foundational and the fundamentals of the field. I'm going to speak a little bit more about that. This is what I'm talking about. It's a long game, good people. It really is a long game. If you think that from an investment point of view, you're going to do things just to cover today, you would not be here the next day. It's a long game. You need a balance, to my point earlier, to say we need to be investing in quick wins, we need to be investing in initiatives that are going to help unlock the value in the interim, keep our customers happy, whilst in the background, we're looking at our digital core, making sure that we are moving. At a channel level, we make sure that we are responsive in exploiting and maturing the technologies that are available. Colleagues, they are available for us to exploit. We just need to actually get there and do it. So if you look at the people side of things, there's no way. I mean, there's lots of views around how the digitization will continue to impact people, but bottom line is there's no technology that's going to thrive and give us what we want without skilled resources. We still need them. If anything, we're looking at augmentation, we're looking at repurposing the roles, but we need the people. If anything, we need to push them to do more meaningful, more exciting, more insightful roles, perform exciting roles. Time to competency. AI is helping us with the time to competency, not just for the software engineers, the developers, in terms of getting ahead with the latest and greatest, but also, even as you look at the back office employee who's not necessarily a developer, to get them on board in giving them the ability, equipping them with the ability and the skills to actually man these technologies. The time to competence is being reduced by just exploiting these technologies. We just need to know how. When you're looking at the process, legacy and bad process shall remain bad, regardless of how much AI. If anything, you're going to pay more trying to exploit AI. Why? Because your processes are legacy, your processes are old, your processes are not re-engineered. So you're going to invest money, but you're going to end up in the same place where you started because you didn't take care of your processes. Data quality hygiene and controls. There's a reason why data quality hygiene and controls is under process. It's because data gets generated through processes. If you don't manage at a system level, your process level and then system level, what data gets inputted, by the time you get to the technology space, you are already lost. You've lost the footing. So data gets generated through the process. The rules that govern those processes are very important because they're going to clean your data automatically. It simplifies that process rather than to come to a space where you now depending on the data architecture, you're depending on the technology to clean, to improve your data index. The best way to do it, this is basic stuff. We learned these things and we're doing them way back. But they're still relevant today because even with the GenAI, even with the latest autonomous AI technologies, if data is not clean, if the quality is poor, you are limited from an exploitation. Technology. From a solution design, I mean, with the chaos that we live in, the unprecedented changes, you can't have the architecture that is not flexible, that is not scalable. We need to design for flexibility so that when the changes come, because they are going to come, they're coming. That's one thing that's guaranteed, right? But you need to be in a space wherein you are able to minimize the investment that's required just to respond to the incremental changes. I understand if it's big, revolutionary stuff, right? But you can't be failing at just your basic technologies that are available because from an architecture point of view, you didn't do the right things, right? And with the way that the world is going on the challenges that we need to be addressing, we need to be looking at green EA principles. Because if you don't do that, we're going to invest in things that are not okay. I know Lebo is very passionate. I'm not picking on you, Lebo. It just so happens that I know what you do. I mean, he's very passionate about making sure that even from an infrastructure investment point of view, they're looking at green investments, everything that they're doing. And I can assure you, colleagues, Telkom is very passionate about sustainability and making sure that we are responsive and in how we invest in the technologies, we take care of the green sustainability requirements. Disrupt or be disrupted. These are the next waves of disruptive digital technologies. Colleagues, we need to prepare. Hence, I was talking about increasing the pace with which we do things, because by now, we should be thinking about machine customers, custobots. That's what we should be thinking about. Readying our environment, readying our architecture, because we know this is coming. We can't be designing architecture and pretend that this is not coming. We need to design it such that when we then begin to tap into these technologies, the custobots, because they're there already. They may not be as prevalent, they may not be impacting on us, but believe you me, they are there. I mean, by 2028, we'd have over 15 billion connected products. I mean, we have them. If you're thinking of HPs and stuff like that, you've got printing machines that are live, almost have a life in them, in the sense that when they're running out, I mean, this is old stuff. But what does this mean for us? Are we, as this industry, going to let this opportunity go? Are we, as Telkom, going to let this opportunity go? Because a customer is a customer. We may move from a human customer, from a consumer, as we understand it, right? But we need to be there and readying ourselves for that. We're talking about augmented, connected workforce. I spoke about the importance of the workforce. I spoke about humanization, because we need to humanize the technologies that we're working with, not just for the end customer, but for the people at the back office, so that they are efficient, so that they're agile, so that they're adding value. Artificial general intelligence. We're talking about digital twin of a customer. This excites me. This really excites me, because in my past life, I happen to be involved in a heavy machinery assets-driven organization where digital twin were a thing. Very helpful, very helpful. But we're now talking about digital twin of a customer. The question is, are we ready? Remember, we're living in a chaotic space where things are just changing, things are just happening. But we need to invest more in understanding our customers and exploit technologies that are available to us to understand how a customer will react given the specific set of ecosystem parameters, conditions, controls, and input signals. We need to ready ourselves for that. Synthetic data. I mean, if you think about this, with the regulatory requirements, the legislation, POPIA, and stuff like this, there's things that we're really not able to do in terms of exploiting the data that we have access to. But what can we do? We can adopt this technology, which helps us to have almost a mirror image, not from a digital twin point of view, but in just making sure that we are able to track, we are able to focus on uncovering, generating, tracking, and responding to the customer signals. Through that data, this is not real data that's sitting in your transactional systems, that's sitting in your databases, because there are regulations in terms of what you can and cannot do, and customers do respond to say, yes, please, no. But if we do this and invest in this, we can still realize the benefits that are meant for us to realize. I mean, computer vision. Computer vision is old, guys. You know that. It's old. But the computer vision version that we're sitting with now, powered by AI, is something else. This speaks to your machine customers in terms of customer bots, but it also speaks to your digital twin in terms of understanding. Can you imagine if you combine those with the computer vision, what happens? So what I'm trying to highlight, my favorite one, digital immune system. We're now designing systems for digital immunity to try and manage the issues that we're having. This is an exciting space even for software engineers and developers, because through digital immunity principles, you are able to make sure that your systems are more resilient, they're more effective, and if you solve issues at an application level, you are quicker. And this is going to challenge the maintenance and support. But it's going to save us money, because if you really think about it, if our systems are designed to be immune to the issues, and they're self-correcting and stuff like that, we're going to have less requirements from an investment into the maintenance and support in terms of level 1, level 2, even sometimes up to level 3, if the systems are designed correctly, to make sure that our systems are almost always up and running. In conclusion, not yet. Let me be quick. We spoke about the sustainability, so technical sustainability, in terms of making sure that we are deliberate, intentional, purposeful, as well as responsible in terms of our investment. I mean, we are going to be measured on the compliance, on sustainability. And there's a lot of telemetry data that's available, observatory, to make sure that we get there. I'm watching my clock, my time is up. And then AI unintended consequences. I'm not going to talk about this. It's the risk, it's the ethics, it's the bias, it's the trust. I mean, it was spoken to at length yesterday. So, but what I'm saying, we can't be looking at the AI, we can't be looking at our hyper-personalization issues without making sure that we address issues of biasness, making sure that our customers can trust us with the solutions, but also trust us with the information. In conclusion, if you take nothing of what I've said, just remember that people are important. Strategy, you can't really execute on something that doesn't exist. The clarity with which you define your strategy and the role of AI for your organization is important. But equally, if your strategy doesn't speak to the digital inclusion, the sustainability requirement is going to fall short because you can't then expect to be doing it post the effects. It needs to be driven at a strategy level. And the last one, it's a challenge. We need to be creating platforms for teams and organizations to co-create and reward. What we're finding out there in the market is that our very employees that we don't think are as creative as they are, they're playing with AI in their homes. They're creating stuff. They're participating in hackathons and stuff like that. They should be doing that for us in addition, or helping us solve the problems. But the reason they're not doing that, what's going to happen to my effort and investment in my IP? It's just a challenge. I'm not sure. I'm not saying, but I'm just challenging us to really think through that. Because what you find, we have people that over the weekends and at night, they're playing with tech. They play with tech because they're bored at work, because we're still dealing with legacy issues, legacy systems and stuff like that, and we're not opening up our environment for them to be creative, to be innovative, but also fail fast. We do have innovation programs and stuff like that, but we must bring it all together. I spoke about data, the importance of data architecture and technology, and I also spoke about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Knox. A real pleasure, and of course, food for thought. It just reminds me of, you know, when they say in an education environment, nowadays, particularly because education sector has moved at such an advanced space, is that it's important when you are teaching, to teach the child as they would want to be taught. I think the same goes with the customers. You know, it's important to be listening more to our customers. Interestingly, of course, as Dr. Knox was talking about the AI-driven, hyper-personalized future, I saw that there are no limited touch points when it comes to AI, particularly because during this conference and the speakers that we've been listening to, there is this a thread then that really speaks to people, process, data, and technology, as she's also alluded to. And of course, after that comes investment, decisiveness, and partnerships, something that we've been hearing a lot of during this conference too. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to now call on Tom Bird, Director Marketing Insights at MDocs. And his topic of discussion today will be Context Center to GenAI Center. Thank you so much, Tom. Tom is currently serving as a Marketing Insight Director at MDocs. In his role, he leads a dedicated team responsible for curating insights to present to MDocs customers, enhancing its customer partnerships and relationships. Before joining MDocs, Tom was head of the B2B Insight team at BT, ensuring their products and their marketing strategies aligned with evolving customer needs. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So good morning, everyone, and I always start my presentations with two things, and the first one is a thank you. So thank you, everyone in this room, for your time, because it's not lost on me that your time is very important, and I want to make the best of your time. But also, thank you for having this conference in this amazing location. I've never been to the Kruger National Park. I've been fortunate enough to be in South Africa many times, but never been to Kruger, and what an amazing place, and what an amazing venue. So I'm kind of pinching myself regularly that we're in this amazing location and just loving being here. So thank you all. The other thing that I always do is a short promise. So I promise to get through this content in 30 minutes, and please do hold me to that promise. I've got a timer here, so I'll make sure that happens. So let me tell you a bit about myself, because I love to share a little bit about myself before I start these presentations. So telecoms is actually in my blood. And I want to take you back to June the 6th, 1944. So that's World War II, that's D-Day. And on D-Day, my grandfather was part of the Liberation Force. He was an American paratrooper in the somewhat famous 101st Airborne Division. And his task on that day of days was he was flown over in a glider. He was towed by another plane. And he landed in Normandy around 1 o'clock in the morning. And his first job was to stay alive. And thankfully, I'm here to prove that he did that. His second job on that day of days was he was a radio operator. And he had this huge radio antenna in his glider. And he had to send a message back to base, which was, the Eagle has landed. And on that D-Day, at 1 o'clock in the morning, he maintains, and I'm not going to argue, and hopefully none of you are going to argue either, that he sent the first message back from Normandy to base on that day of days. After the war, he understood that telecoms was going to change the world. And he wasn't wrong, was he? And he started a construction company. And at great expense to himself, he kitted out all of his company vehicles with wireless radios. And at home, he decided that it would be very sensible to stay in contact with all of his team whilst he was at home. So he erected a huge 10-meter tall antenna in his garden. His neighbors hated him. They thought it was disgusting and really didn't like it. But for him, it was really important to stay in contact with all of his team. And so not only was he the first person on D-Day to send that message back to base, but he was also the first person, in my opinion, to appreciate the value of working from home, something that all of us do every single day. So a little bit about me now. So I've been in telecoms for a long time. Unati gave me a lovely introduction. I've spent my entire career understanding the needs of customers. And I've been at operators. I've sat where you're sitting today. I've been at handset manufacturers. I was at BlackBerry. I was at Samsung. But I've always been in charge or tasked with understanding the needs of customers. And more importantly, understanding the needs of your customers. So that's what I do. And at Amdocs, we are a software and services company, and we serve 400 customers around the world. We have a telecoms GPT, so we have a dedicated telecoms generative AI tool. And today I want to talk to you about our understanding of your customers when it comes to interacting with generative AI agents. And that's really what we've set out to do today. I want to share some lovely learnings with you about how we've thought about this challenge of how will customers act and deal with generative AI agents. So a little bit of participation, please. The energy levels feel a little bit low this morning, so I'm trying to let's get the energy levels up. So anyone want to shout out where they think this photo was taken, and number one, but more importantly, shout out, when do you think this photo was taken? Anyone? Well, it's a little bit after World War II, actually. Anyone? 60s, close. So 1975. This is a contact center from 1975. So 49 years ago, right? And not a lot's changed. Not a lot's changed. One thing that has changed, thankfully, is that there's all women in this picture, and the contact centers that I've been to recently, there's a lot more men now, thankfully. 50-50, let's say. But really what we've got here is people with headsets. They're answering customers' calls. They are typing on typewriters. Nowadays they're computers, but really not much has changed. And so we wanted to understand what would make a massive difference to the way that contact centers are going to be operating, and that's generative AI. And these headlines are exactly the type of thing that we think is going to happen. And really, it's this one here that really I like a lot, because it's humans plus AI make the massive transformational changes. This isn't about replacing humans. This is about making humans more effective, making them do the more important, complex, challenging tasks, and allowing the tasks that people want to contact the contact center to get done more efficiently. So this is really what we think is going to revolutionize the way customer engagement is going to happen. We're going to see massive shifts. And that's all driven by generative AI in the contact center. And to start off with, we decided that we would go out and we would speak to 7,000 customers worldwide. 7,000, and that's a lot of people to speak to, right? But what I love about this chart, for the first time we went out and spoke to over 500 people in South Africa, customers in South Africa, to understand how they think about generative AI versus the rest of the world. And what you'll see in this presentation is South Africans, their data, and then you'll see a comparison to the global data. So you'll be able to see how, and I'll point out any statistical significant differences between South Africa and the rest of the world, because there are some, and it's interesting to see. But this study was something that was really passionate for Amdocs. We loved to think about how customers are going to react. What does the future look like? How are they going to be in this new environment, and how are they going to react with these generative AI agents? So this is what we did. But let's review how customers interact first and foremost. How do they interact with contact centers at the moment? And it should be no surprise to anyone in this room that humans are the dominant channel when it comes to interaction. So I pick up the phone, typically, and I get connected to a human. Brilliant. Interestingly, bots are used less, but there's some people that out there that do use bots, which is fine. You know, bots have a purpose, they're just not very good at the moment. And the reason humans are such a dominant channel is because humans do a fantastic job. Most of us will agree with these statements, that if you speak to a human, you get relevant and accurate information, you get good explanations and recommendations, and you get things done quite quickly. The time it takes to resolve those things is generally really positive. And actually, if you look at these numbers versus the rest of the world, South Africans are more satisfied than the rest of the world with the human interaction that they get, which is really interesting. I'd love to know some of the reasons what that might be, but you know, South Africans generally more satisfied with the human contact center, which is great. But there are challenges, of course, when it comes to interacting with human agents. And what we wanted to do was understand what might be some of the frustrations that customers would have when it comes to speaking with humans. And the obvious ones that we've got here are wait times. So I have to wait occasionally to speak to a human, which is frustrating. I'd love to just be able to get straight through, but occasionally, particularly at peak times, we've all heard the message, your call is important to us, please hold, we'll get to you soon, you're in a queue. We all know that conversation. We've all been in that situation where we've heard that conversation. The other thing is availability. So if you look at your own contact center availability times, chances are, you know, there's some flexibility there, but there'll be periods where the lines are closed. And that's normal, but customers would prefer 24/7 service. The other thing that sometimes customers say is that it depends on the human that I get to. So if I get to someone that's having a great day, then they'll be really happy and they'll be really polite and empathetic to my situation, but not always. So it depends on the situation, it depends on the human. Empathy and politeness is sometimes a challenge. So those three things are somewhat frustrations for customers when it comes to interacting with humans. The good news, and this is the really good news, is that customers want to use digital more and more to interact with us as operators. They want to be doing things more digitally. So they want to do basic things, and we'll talk about some of those things in a second. But when we talk to customers about how often would you use digital channels given the opportunity, and the answer is we'd use them twice as much as we currently do. It's just that they're not quite there yet for some of the customers. And interestingly, when we speak to the types of customers that want to use digital, it should be no surprise to us in this room that it's the younger audience that really want to use digital channels more and more. So if anyone's interacted with Gen Z or Gen Z customers, you'll know that they do things a lot more digitally. So my niece and nephew, they're in Gen Z. My son and daughter, they're Gen Alpha, so they're a bit different. But Gen Z to try and get them to talk to you on the phone is challenging. But if you text them, you get an answer. And this is basically what we're seeing, is these are digital native people. They want to use digital channels more and more. They're used to interacting with their friends, their schools digitally. And this is what we're seeing in the data. So this won't be the same for older people, you know, my dad, who's 78. But this will be the case for the customers that are starting to really come into the market, the Gen Z customers. The other thing is that bots are not the solution to digital challenges. Bots do not generally do what customers want them to do. So satisfaction levels or dissatisfaction levels of bots is 3 times as high as with humans. So what we found, and this quote says it perfectly, and many of us will be in this situation. If you're met with a bot, and I'd show of hands if you've done this, you try and find a hack where you remove the bot as quickly as you can. So what can I type in this box which gets me to a human, right? And we've all been in that situation because you just think, it's just so challenging to get things done with bots. It's keywords, it's not natural, it's clicking buttons. They just don't do what they're supposed to do. They're not universally loathed, but this quote pretty much sums up how most of us in this room feel about bots. So we think that generative AI is going to have a huge part to play in solving some of those challenges and allowing customers to do things more digitally. And this is why we set out to do this research. But customers are going to be concerned about using generative AI agents. And no doubt, when any new technology is introduced, there's going to be some nervousness, there's going to be some, I don't like this new thing, this newfangled thing. So we wanted to understand what those challenges would be. And it turns out that prejudice is the #1 thing that influences people's the fear of using something that's new is driven by prejudice. And that's because they've used a digital channel in the past, like a bot, and that bot has given them a poor experience, and that has led to them thinking, well, everything's going to be like that in the future. So when we think about these the data points that I'm going to put forward in the next few slides, think about that prejudice. Think about your own prejudice of using digital tools and how that's influenced and how that will influence new tools. And the #1 thing that customers worry about is being misunderstood. So when we ask them, what are your worries about generative AI? I worry it will misunderstand me. And of course, that comes from that prejudice of a position where you think, okay, I've used a bot before, or I've been on the call before, and we've been on this position as well, where it says, please describe to me in a short sentence why you're calling today. And I would say, I'm calling to buy the new iPhone. And it would say, great, I'm going to put you through to the billing team, because you've got a problem with your bill. And I was like, no. I want to buy the new iPhone. And again, it misunderstands me. And again, it misunderstands me. And then it finally puts you through to a human. So that prejudice is why people are saying that. And we need to be really clear with some of the recommendations that we've got around this, that that is a challenge that will not exist in a generative AI world. 2 other things. Now, yesterday we talked about this from an operator side, which is data security, and that is something that customers are really concerned about. So how are we going to secure their data? What's happening to their data? Am I putting something into a generative AI tool that could be in some way used against me? And we've all probably got some fear when a new piece of technology is introduced, that somehow that data will be used incorrectly and it will fall into the wrong hands. The other thing is, people want to know when they're speaking to a generative AI agent. They don't want to know that they're being fooled in some way, that they've been duped into thinking that they're interacting with a human and they're actually interacting with a generative AI agent. So those 2 things are really important to customers, as well as the understanding and the misunderstanding. And this quote sums it up really nicely. So people, when they get this new technology introduced, there's some fear of privacy, security, and fraud. So whilst we've got on the operator side, we care about ethics, we care about data security, we care about how we're doing things, customers have exactly the same fears and concerns. So let's think about those things as we move forward. So at Amdocs, because we've built this telecom dedicated GPT, we wanted to have a think about what would be the playbook, what would be the recommendations that we would give you in this room and say, if you're going to implement these tools, here's the things you've got to watch out for. Here's the missteps that we don't want you to go down that route. Here's the pitfalls we want you to avoid. And this is what we've come up with based on the information that we've gathered from your customers. And the first one should be no surprise to anyone in this room, which is go slow. Take your time. Because many of us, hopefully not in this room, but many of us in technology world see generative AI as some sort of panacea, some sort of solve-all pill that we can just swallow in telecom, which will solve all of our challenges. And it's absolutely not going to solve all of our challenges. Some it will solve very well, but it's not a panacea. And so we've set out this kind of phased approach, which we think you should all think about really carefully when it comes to adopting generative AI. So is it suitable for all tasks? No, it's not. But some it's very well suitable for. So you can imagine that generative AI tools, and like I said, about this collaboration between humans and generative AI agents is really important. So imagine that you can update your plan through a generative AI agent. That would be a really simple, really easy thing to do. Again, because you're doing that, the humans are able to do the more complicated things, like complaints. So the scale here you see is updating plan, technical support, billing, very much suited to generative AI agents. This is according to customers. Sales and complaints, they're a little less interested in at the moment. So that's a job for us to do, but equally, if someone's got something really emotional, really complicated, why would you want them to speak to a generative AI agent? Perhaps that is better suited to a human, and that's where you get that collaboration between the two. Next is the data scaled approach. So what are your KPIs? Define your KPIs really clearly to understand how and why you're deploying these things. Customer satisfaction. Compare them to humans. Is it doing the job better than a human, more efficiently than a human? If it's not, then what's the point? And all of those KPIs need to be really defined. And in fact, the previous presentation we talked about segmentation. That is a really important way to understand who should be using generative AI agents, who should just be using a human. So my dad, 78, tried to switch operators between one and another, and he was forced to use a chatbot. And he just had a moment of anxiety. This is going to beat me. I can't do this. And so that wasn't the right thing for him. Picking up the phone and speaking to a human would have been perfect for him, and that would have worked better. But for my niece and nephew who are in Gen Z, they would very much prefer to use generative AI tools. So segment around who's likely to want to use these tools and who's not. And lastly, as we said, human and AI collaboration is key, absolutely key to getting these jobs done more efficiently and allowing customers to be happier. It's a win-win. So agents as a backup, and this is really what we think is a really nice way of allowing people to try generative AI agents without forcing them to use generative AI agents. So if you're in a queue and you're in a line and you're waiting for a human to answer that call, why not offer them a generative AI agent for the interim? So say, look, you can speak to a generative AI agent straight away, but your place will be held in the line, and you'll get through to them as soon as they're available. But if the generative AI agent can help you with your query, fantastic. And that generative AI agent may solve their query. It may not. But nothing ventured, nothing gained for the customer. It's a lovely, softer approach to allow them to try a generative AI agent without forcing them to use a generative AI agent. So we really quite like that. And then the other way that we like is that customers prefer callbacks. So you can say, look, speak to the generative AI agent straight away, and if they can't get your problem solved, someone will call you back as soon as they're available. It's a really nice alternative to having them sit in a line. Really important to think about how we do that and how we integrate generative AI agents. We talked about privacy and transparency. Super important. super important to customers. So you have to make them aware that they are having a secure conversation with you as an operator. And I think about when, and I'm showing my age, I think about when I first used the internet and I first made a purchase online. And does anyone remember the first time you bought something online? Anyone? It was a long time ago, right? A lot of the web pages would have huge Fort Knox-looking safes on their website. They would have AES 256-bit encryption. They'd have things like SSL. They'd have all of these acronyms on that web page to show you and to prove to you that it was secure. The generative AI tools are exactly the same as when the internet first started and we were thinking about buying things online. People had nervousness. They had fears of doing things online. And we need to be exactly the same when it comes to generative AI agents. So give people really good examples of how their data is being used. And this is CarMax in the US. And they have a generative AI agent. It's not a bot. It's called Sky. She's a virtual guide to help you to purchase a car. And they put their privacy policy right in the middle of the screen. So you can see that by using this chat, blah, 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 and here's our privacy policy. But remember, these generative AI agents aren't going to be bots. They're not going to be text-based. They're going to be voice-based. And therefore, if a customer asks, how is my data going to be used? The generative AI agent has to give a really succinct answer about how that is going to happen and what they're going to use it for. Number 4. So we really think that we want to allow people and make people aware that these complex queries can be answered by generative AI agents, but they are not chatbots. So if you call your generative AI agent a chatbot powered by ChatGPT or a chatbot powered by whatever the technology is you're using, you're going to put customers off. Customers don't want to speak to chatbots. They have a huge negative connotation with chatbots. Please don't call them chatbots. And again, another example from America. This is Bank of America. Erica is a virtual financial assistant, absolutely not a chatbot. She's a bit like Apple Siri or Amazon Alexa, and allows you to do things with your finance, with your banking, that you would do with a human. You would just ask it basic questions and it answers. Again, it's chat-based, but imagine it was voice-based. This is what we're talking, brand away from chatbots. There is an operator I've seen that is doing exactly what I described, and it's not a good idea based on the research that we've done. Now, this is where generative AI becomes really exciting, is personalization. And imagine you can allow a customer to choose all of the attributes of their generative AI agent, and that agent becomes their personal account manager. And this is what we're talking about here. So I just love when I think about this slide and how the options that customers could choose when it comes to interacting with a generative AI agent. Now, you could choose the age, like how does that generative AI agent sound? What's the tone? What's the gender? But the really, really interesting stuff is language. So I was talking to a colleague at dinner last night, and we were talking about the number of languages in South Africa. So there's 13 official languages in South Africa, but there is a long tail of languages in South Africa that people speak. You know, there's a lot of expat community in this country as well that go beyond the 13. But 13 is a large number of languages to support. And this is where Africa and South Africa cannot be left behind, because the language support is going to be super important to customers. So I want to speak in my native language. And if you can imagine the customer feedback when you're able to do that. But you've got to remember that personalization is personal. Not everyone wants to personalize their generative AI agent. So for any operator in the world, it's up to you to really think about how you are making these decisions. So what characteristics should I have in this generative AI agent? Because it represents my brand. What gender should it be? What age should it be? Those are choices that you can all make. And generally, people don't really care. But there's some things that we did discover that were off limits. So don't come up with some sort of avatar which is an animal or something which is a bit sort of fanciful and jokey and jovial. That's not what customers want. They want efficiency and they want to get things done. But they really don't care about all of these things. But when it comes to language, that's when people get really excited. And then the other one that we said is just keep humans in the loop. So if I decide that I've got to a point with a generative AI agent, but I can't go any further, then allow me to hit the panic button and get through to a human as soon as I can. Humans plus generative AI agents is what the collaboration is really about, and that's what we really want to emphasize here, is allow people to do things with the agents, of course, but always have an option that they can speak to a human. And this really says it perfectly. A customer in Australia, they're saying exactly the same thing. Allow me to speak to a human when I can and when I need to. Now, this is what I was talking about over dinner last night as well with Dieter. Is Dieter in the room? Dieter. Yeah, it's Dieter. So a little challenge. Again, please raise your hands. Anyone that knows what the uncanny valley is? Oh, wow. There's a lot of academics in this room, and this is brilliant. So I presented this same content in Canada to about 150 people. No one knew what the uncanny valley is, which is really interesting. But the uncanny valley is when you get close to a human, but not so close that it actually gives you a horrible reaction. It's like a visceral reaction. It's like the same sort of reaction if you saw a dead body or a zombie. It just doesn't feel right. You can feel that there's something there, but it's just not quite right. And I'll give you a quick example of that. Anyone seen this film, The Polar Express? Anyone? Yeah. So it's a children's Christmas film, but actually you've got Tom Hanks here. Now, I couldn't quite work out whether this was animation or if it was filmed and kind of changed slightly, but actually it's animation. But the problem that they had was they made it too close to humans, and it creeped people out. And this is exactly some of the reviews were spot on. Absolutely terrifying. Took 2 kids under 5, they got scared, had to leave the movie. It's exactly that response that we need to avoid when we're deploying generative AI agents. So there's some demos I saw from ChatGPT which crossed into the uncanny valley, dropped into the valley, and just were awful. You know, lots of jovial, human-like things that just really creepy. So we cannot do that with generative AI agents. We need to be really careful about this uncanny valley. And if anyone wants to do a bit of extra research on it, please do, because it's fascinating. What's the good news? The good news is if you deploy generative AI agents, people say, and 51% of South Africans say that they would see you as innovative and futuristic. Now, there's companies in this world that spend billions and billions of dollars to be seen as innovative and futuristic. So by deploying generative AI, this was a massive surprise, by the way. I didn't expect this sort of reaction, that customers would actually see that. The majority, 51%, would say that they were see companies as innovative and futuristic. It's unusual, let's put it that way. And this is my last slide. This is really interesting again. How many people, we ask customers, how would that perception of the company be? Would it be positive? 62% in South Africa said that it would be positive. Unbelievable, really unbelievable. This blew me away. I didn't expect to see these types of results. So truly amazing. So as I said, we are going to release a generative AI playbook. We want you all to download it. And if you think about deploying those tools, and hopefully that they're in collaboration with Amdocs, think about these lessons that we've put forward. Don't make the missteps. Don't fall into those pitfalls that I mentioned, and be really mindful of all the things that I've told you today. And with 14 seconds left, I was true to my promise. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Tom, for that illuminating presentation, I must say. So if 62% of South Africans are interested in this, what are we waiting for? That's a question I asked yesterday. I'm still asking it today. All right, so one of the things, Tom, that I loved about your presentation, of course, is that it really does speak to the heart of what most customers want, you know. What does this mean for me? That's what the question is always about. So what the guys are doing now, they're just setting up for our panel discussion. So it reminds me again about how technology should not be, it should be able to enable and not constrain. So that's just one of the key takeouts. And again, it reminds me of a time where the first time I actually was exposed to something like that was when I was traveling abroad. I'm not sure if it was the airport in Hong Kong or if it was an airport in Singapore, but two examples from Tom's presentation that stood out for me was just the one example about human-to-human contact and how airports at that time were trying to just compromise between technology and what they are accustomed to. So for one, I walked into this airport, and I think what it did, it used intuitive signage, right? So at the point where you want to know, where am I going next, there was a sign. At the point where you wanted to say, I want to draw money, there was a sign. At the point where you said, I want to get into a cab, there was a sign. So everything about that airport just really gave me a feel of they know what I want. And the other one was when we started bringing through, and when I say we, I used to work for Airports Company South Africa, silent airports, right? That concept of not having to announce every 5 seconds. And I think what happened there was that compromise between, technology and also just keeping it very quiet, and also those kiosks that were there. But thank you so much, Tom, for that for that presentation. So now we are going to move into our panel discussion. And like Tom, this panel is going to be very interactive, and by that I mean you will be asked questions. Our moderator is very keen to hear your sentiments, and this is the part where you really, can then engage with the panel. And just to roughly go through the panel, it is the topic of discussion is redefining telecommunications, telcos of the future, and of course it will be moderated by Sello Makau, who's a Group Chief Digital Officer. And I want to run through just the profile of the panel members. I'm going to skip you, Sello, because I think everybody by now knows who you are. And just, for time's sake, so I'm going to go straight to it. We've got Professor Dr. Thomas Magadelans, and he's from the Technical University of Berlin in Germany. Some of these profiles, of course, are on the website and, of course, on your app. Thomas Magadelans has been a professor at the Technikon or Technical University in Berlin in Germany, leading the chair for the Next Generation Networks since 2004. In addition, since 2003, he's been a director of the business unit software-based networks at the Fraunhofer Institute Focus in Berlin. Now, what I like about this is that in addition, he acts as a senior principal investigator for 6G core architectures within the two German 6G hubs, namely Open 6G Hub and 6G RIC. Him and his team have also developed the new organized or organic 6G core network concept, building the foundation for the new Open 6G core toolkit. Thank you so much and welcome, Prof. Next on the panel is Dr. Adrian Tiplady, and he is the Deputy Managing Director, Strategy and Partnerships for the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory. Basically, his profile reads as follows. Dr. Tiplady holds a PhD in Physics and Electronics and is currently the Deputy Managing Director for Strategy and Partnerships at the SARAO, as we call it. For the last 2 decades, in fact, Dr. Tiplady has been primarily involved in South Africa's participation in the international SKA project from the original compilation of Africa's successful bid to host the SKA. And that project, I think, is undergoing developments too in the Northern Capes, to the establishment of the SKA Observatory as an intergovernmental treaty organization and establishment of a legally protected South Africa site to host the SKA telescope. Thank you so much, Dr. Tiplady. Naeem Sadat is the Executive Group IT Telkom South Africa. Now, his journey has involved walking both the corporate and the entrepreneurial paths and has built his own startup business. He has held several ExCo leadership positions, including CEO of Communications at Public Group Africa and Vice President at TransUnion Africa. Naeem is an agent of change and has spent much of his career helping organizations to reimagine the status quo. Thank you so much, Mr. Sadat, for that. Manav Dabi is a specialist data and AI at Google South Africa. Manav is a passionate technologist with close to 20 years of experience in the industry. He's a skilled solution architect with a proven track record of helping customers achieve their goals. He's also passionate about helping customers become more future tolerant by creating solutions that are adaptable to change. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. What's wrong with this picture, Silo? Just hint, hint.
Thank you.
But thank you so much, Silo. And of course, the topic for discussion again is redefining telecommunications telcos of the future. I will be standing towards the back of the room, and someone else from the LOC team will be helping me in standing from that side of the room, just in terms of getting the mics ready. If you have any questions, we will be there to take some of them. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Onati, for that introduction. I just want to, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a dialogue. So no PowerPoint for that 40 minutes. I'm sure it's a sigh of relief. Not that presentations are not good, but we're doing something different. I just want to scan the audience here. So I'm going to ask you to please all stand up. I'm not going to make you do any exercise. If you can please all stand up. It's also a form of straight leg, right? You've been sitting for a long time.
Don't dare try it.
So this is the time that when you have a moment where you can be able to instruct your CEO to stand up, you seize that moment. Sorry, I know there's EXCO coming next. Even the chair would have been standing up here. So I just want to check if your title is an account director, account manager, a CTO, a CDO, a CIO, and a business development. Please remain standing and everybody must sit down. If you are a CTO, CDO, hey, my boss can sit down. And then you are a CIO, you're an account director, business development, account manager, remain standing, right? Okay, thank you very much. You can sit down, boss. All right. Thank you. So I see. I'm going to ask who else is here. I think they're gonna stand up. If you are a CAIO and you are standing, remain standing. If you are a CAIO but you are sitting, can you please stand up? So basically, everybody will be standing will either be having a title of CAIO. Do you know what is that? No clue? If you are a Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer, any Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer in the room? No? Not a single CIO? This is an AI conference, guys. Okay, maybe let me take it a little bit lower than that, a subset of that. If you are a CLLMO, please stand up. Any CLLMO? No CLLMO? No Chief Language Model Officer? Nothing. This is an AI conference, guys. You spoke about natural language processing. You spoke about all these things yesterday you were presenting. Accenture, Amdocs, no CAIO, no CLMO? Okay. No, that's fine. Gentlemen, I think I need to change the set of questions. I had 3 sets of questions. The first one is basic AI-related question, which is option 1 at the basic. And then we had the second option, which is intermediate, for just to make sure that we accommodate those that really are not there. And we've got a third option, which is advanced. So I'm going to ask the panelists, do I stick to option A, which is basic, or option B, which is, looking at the audience here, we don't want something that will go over them. Right? Okay. We'll do the mix of both. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to fire up. Thank you, colleagues. No one is standing, so I was the only one standing. I'm the only chief artificial intelligence officer in the room. Okay. Prof, I'm going to start with you. So there has been a fair amount of hype surrounding the transition from traditional telcos to what you call TECO, which is a new operating model for the advanced telecommunication companies. How do you see AI enabling that operating model? Or are we seeing a similar hype that we've seen with 5G, which has not really lived to expectations?
Okay, so first of all, let me say thanks for being again here at this beautiful SATNAC community and to share my views. Well, I would say those who are working in the area of software-based networks have seen that automation of networks is a long tradition. So in this regard, I would say artificial intelligence at this point in time is at a stage to really be useful as a tool in order to implement self-automated networks which could optimize itself. And when we particularly take a look what is currently happening in the 6G research program, we will see that AI is an important ingredient for these new network concepts. So I assume that we will see much easier to deploy networks which can fulfill a lot of policies or targets in order to meet energy efficiency or performance and other targets. Nevertheless, and this is something I just shortly want to point out, even when we see here at this conference, when we tackle artificial intelligence, we have seen just a little bit of AI applied to the real networking. And we see that there's a lot of, let's call it application enablement, being it smart health, smart energy, smart factories, and the like. And this is something where I really just want to create awareness that when we talk about AI, we talk about data, and we talk about who owns this data. And this is something which in the future goes to, I would say 90% to the enterprises, to the application domains. And therefore the main question, in my opinion, which is remaining, what is left in the telco space? Connectivity becomes a commodity, and thanks to AI, probably a no-brainer. This means the enterprise market, as we see it currently rising in Europe and globally, is something which will largely benefit from these developments. And I would really love to see in the future here more discussions about how these enterprises could be enabled and what, of course, is the role of Telkom and the classic providers. But more on this maybe in the course of the discussions.
Thank you, Prof. Maybe I'll expand on that. Maybe let me just jump to Naeem. I think Prof spoke about AI as an enablement, but there's always a question about the AI strategy. There are two schools of thought. One advocates for building a vertical or an AI strategy, while on the other side, you've got those that have got a view that AI should be embedded in all products and services, rendering the development of a specific AI strategy unnecessary. What are your views around that?
Sure. So look, I've known you for 10 years, and you always have this knack of asking very simple questions with complicated answers. This is one of those questions which has a little bit of a depends answer to it. And I think the depends part talks or really is linked to the degree to which you as a business understand AI. Nitesh talked about it yesterday in his presentation when he touched on the need for executives and business people to develop an understanding of this, unlike any other technology that we have previously encountered. Now, determining what your business's relationship with AI is very important before you can answer that question. So what do we mean by this? What do we mean by having a business relationship with AI? So to understand this concept, what I found helpful is to change or reframe the way in which you look at AI. And, I might be a little bit provocative in saying this, but what I suggest is don't look at AI as a tool. Don't look at AI as an application. But what I found helpful is to look at AI as a value chain. And when you understand the nature of the value chain, that it's a progressive set of activities performed by many different actors globally, firstly. It's a globally integrated value chain. It's a value chain which is distributed across many different players, and it involves the hardware, software, talent, IP of many different parties coming together to deliver these amazing services that create this magic that we are experiencing right now. Now that value chain is highly concentrated. So what that means, it favors certain companies and certain countries. I'm not going to name them, but I think we all know who they are. It's also a value chain which, when you think about it, you as a business need to think about your relationship with that value chain. And there are three primary relationship statuses or statuses in terms of how an organization interacts with that value chain. The first is you can be a consumer. You can be a consumer of that value chain, and that kind of describes most businesses, to be honest with you. You are the end users of AI. And most of us will either directly make a decision to consume AI or indirectly through our third-party vendors or our service providers end up consuming AI. The second status is that you could be a contributor to this value chain. And what are the contributors? The contributors are those folks who kind of develop a proficiency. They master the art of using things like published APIs, widgets, etc. To quote an often used term in the telco industry, they go over the top on AI providers. So they use the language models of others, and they build IP that layers on top of it. And they're able to then create and contribute to the value chain in that regard. The other interesting contributors are those people who hold the vaults of data. So we call it feeding the models. I kind of like that image of feeding a model. But the feeding a model in the future will be those who are holding data that need to be fed into these models. And so contributing your data into the value chain is another aspect. The first wave of models were largely trained on publicly available data, or as some call it, allegedly appropriated data. The jury's still out on that. But the next wave of models are going to depend on all this proprietary data that's sitting locked away in various corporate areas. And that data will determine the ability of language models to create differentiated services. So that's the contributor kind of relationship. And then, of course, you've got the producer relationship. Highly concentrated value chain, so producers are few and far between, but these are the people who own the core. So whether it's the hardware, the software, the GPUs, the computing power that's used to power these things, or even the fabs and the processing capabilities to produce the chips that are needed for it. And very few will actually end up being there. So coming back to the question, Selo, do you need a dedicated, unified strategy in an organization for AI, or should you allow AI to proliferate into your products and services? I think it really depends on which one of these relationships you want to have with AI. So if you are going to be a consumer of AI, you absolutely need a policy. That is the basic component. Unless you are completely not using it, you don't need a policy for AI, yeah. But most organizations will need a policy for AI. That policy is important to create an environment for good governance, for responsible use and ethical use of AI, but also guides the way in which AI then proliferates into your products and services. Yeah. If your business strategy is sort of leaning towards being a contributor or a producer, then absolutely you need to spend the time, the energy, the effort, the cost in developing a strategy which will inform the kinds of opportunities that you look at, product opportunities, the product development path you take, and very importantly, the commercialization and the protection of your intellectual property as well as part of this extended value chain. So yeah, simple rule of thumb, if you are consuming policy, if you are producing or you're contributing, it's very worthwhile to spend the effort on a strategy.
Okay. I just want to throw this question to the audience. Any take-up in terms of you need to have a vertical AI strategy, or the AI is just part of emerging technology which should be embedded in all your product and services? Any take-up? Nitesh, what is the Accenture's view on this?
So I think from an Accenture perspective, look, it's important to have a strategy. I think if you let this thing run loose...
It's important to have an AI strategy or digital transformation strategy, which AI is part of that. I just need it to be very specific.
AI strategy, to answer the question, right? So I think to be very specific or from an AI perspective, I think you need to absolutely have an AI strategy and not let this run loose in the organization. And I like what Naeem is saying, but if you just let it proliferate throughout the organization without tying it back up to your business goals, your business value, I think you could hit some stumbling blocks.
Okay, thank you. Any take up? Nokia? Still remember where you come from.
One, two, yeah, it's working. Now, what I think is, as part of the strategy, Stella, what is really important as well is to look at the digital infrastructure required. And I think, Naeem, you mentioned it, is not only about the CPU power, but all what it requires. Because all this mass of data need to go to be processed somewhere, near to you or further somehow in a data center. And making sure that we have the basic right of the digital infrastructure. So while we look at the AI services that we would, or the AI we want to put in our service and product, we need to make sure, do we have the digital infrastructure that will allow to make it? And that's what I think is very important as part of the strategy. So strategy, yes, but we need to go one level down, also looking at what sometimes are called the plumbing of it, which we tend to forget sometimes.
Excellent. Great views. Manav?
Thanks.
Let's hear what Google's view on this is.
And I'm aware that's a very loaded term because obviously I'm coming from a certain perspective that I think Naeem was alluding to a few things that I'm sure we'll get some questions around Google handles this. The one thing that we found when it comes to talking to a lot of our customers, you were talking an AI strategy. And the reason there's sometimes a danger there is people have been using predictive AI for a very long time. They kind of know what it is. We've been building models for a long time. And when you talk an AI strategy, people think that they can use what they've been doing with the predictive AI models and transfer it to generative AI. And the cautionary statement I want to make around it is when we've been talking to a lot of our customers, the first thing at the executive level you need to do is have a really good understanding of what value generative AI truly brings within your division, within the organization. Because generative AI is not the same as predictive AI. I think we've been seeing in a lot of the presentations today, the capabilities that it has and the opportunities that it brings are a relatively new set of technologies that haven't been present in the past at any point in time. So something that I've been seeing a lot of organizations doing is, if you were calling out a lot of the C-suite here, if you are in HR, you need to be sitting down and thinking that as a head of HR, what does my role and my job look like if I introduce generative AI to it? How do I reimagine my job with generative AI being a part of the process? Because I need to understand what role it's going to play there. And I think this is Naeem's point, whether you're a producer, whether you're a consumer of it. I don't think you should label it up front. I think you need to figure out what the business value is that is brought within each division. If you're going to be producing it or bringing it to your consumer-facing products, how do I do it? What value proposition is it going to bring? And how do I have a controlled way of introducing it to my consumer market to make sure that it does provide the value that I did up front? And I think essentially, from an AI strategic perspective, every division needs to rethink their role because of the newness of this technology, to get an understanding of what Telkom looks like in the next 3 to 5 years with generative AI being part of your DNA.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. I think, you can hear there are very contrasting views, and it just shows that AI is something that we're still grappling with, and I think we're making progress in terms of real understanding where this can add value. Maybe, Manav, in terms of, I mean, just linking to what I heard from Nokia, how do you see AI shaping the future of telecom networks and infrastructure in the context of shared resources and collaborative services?
Sure, it's a great question. So, I think my mic's gone. Oh, there we go. I'm back online. So, exactly as I mentioned, there's obviously a lot of new capability here that has kind of been introduced. And one of the most amazing things about generative AI is its ability to understand large volumes of data, large knowledge bases in the background, but being able to disseminate that information in a very human, consumable way. The reason I give that background is when you think about the complexities we've got with the network infrastructure, especially here in South Africa, you probably have homogeneous network equipment that is coming from multiple vendors. You probably want to be able to figure out, how best you are maintaining the network, what your network planning looks like, essentially all of the things to make sure this capital expenditure that you have, that is the biggest expenditure on your books, is done in the most efficient way. Generative AI can play a very significant role there. We at Google have already been exploring on how a generative AI can sit alongside some of your engineers, your network engineers, so that when a problem occurs on the network and they need to figure out how to send out a configuration file to either fix the issue or maybe rebuild the network in a particular way, a generative AI model can help them construct that, can help them understand exactly what the background should be for that particular network element, can actually help them actually get through a lot of the technical capabilities that they're looking for. From an OpenServe perspective, of course, you might have multiple MVNOs that want to be able to use your network, and they want to be able to understand how to interface with it. You obviously are a digital business. You have, I'm assuming, a lot of APIs that you're using to interact with your consumer base, and you want to be able to make that as easy and as simple as possible. You asked earlier on the question about how telcos can transform into technos and what role AI can play in that. Well, a lot of generative AI models can actually help somebody. Instead of looking at an SDK, I'm going to give you the code and show you exactly how you can start talking to me as a network. Code assistants have already shown productivity gains of 20 to 40% in a lot of the use cases that are there now, and they're becoming even more efficient going forward. So essentially what you're trying to do is lower the technical barrier for people utilizing the services that you've got. Yeah. And maybe one of the other points, which is slightly different to your question, is if as a telco you are seeing yourself as a techno going forward, one of the things we really have to appreciate from companies like yours is when you are building generative AI applications that have usage. So here at Google, for instance, we are developing things that are medical LLMs that understand medical data, that can actually go and help with diagnoses or do things where, from a medical perspective, they're able to provide an expertise when you don't have doctors that are present throughout the continent. An essential part of being able to make an application like that successful is communication infrastructure. And what that means is telcos have a vital role to play, and probably from the techno space itself, in not just so this has come to where you're utilizing generative AI from a producer perspective, and you are building applications or facilitating applications so that their success can use your infrastructure to obviously, I guess, benefit everyone and democratize a lot of the capabilities and a lot of the benefits that we've been seeing.
Yeah. Great. And linking to democratizing the use of AI, I'm coming to you, Dr. Adrian. The concept of shared value is really central to this discussion, especially in the context of also shared economy. How can telcos go beyond just making profit and make sure that we co-create for the customers and society and themselves in partnership, that are already existing? How do we form private-public partnership to co-create this shared value?
So, I think what will be important is just stepping back and understanding what is the driving force behind shared value. Because for the last 250 years, the core principle around business has been profit-centered, where the purpose of a business was to deliver profit to its shareholders. and it treated environmental and social challenges as externalities. And ironically, global connectivity has brought information to society, has empowered society, it's enabled society to mobilize, to make decisions. And society sees large corporations as key actors within an ecosystem of social and environmental change. In fact, 2/3 of the largest economic entities in the world are corporations, not companies. And so they demand of organizations the delivery of value. And we've seen a shift in companies moving from a shareholder model to a stakeholder model, not delivering only profit to its shareholders, but delivering value to its stakeholders. And that requires a really key understanding of what the value system of your stakeholders is. So what is shared value, right? It's a business strategy that links profit to purpose. And that purpose is driven by your customer base. It's driven by your employees. And it's driven by your investors. I think, and we shouldn't mistake, creation of shared value with corporate social investment, which is often the case, right? CSI is around mitigating harmful impact, being a good corporate citizen. Shared value is about advancing business as well as the socioeconomic conditions in the communities in which those organizations operate. And there are three types of company that I think are really good at generating shared value. The first is those companies that are born with that vision. I think Tesla, for example, is a really good example. There are those organizations that are doing good but can do a little bit better. I think pharmaceutical industry is a good example, and probably the telecom space is also a good example of that. And then finally, it's those companies that are forced to change. Fossil fuel companies, for example, is a good area. So they typically adopt a framework of either reconceiving products and markets, looking at and redefining productivity across the value chain. And what is also important is enabling local cluster development, ensuring that one of those stakeholders is the society and the communities in which you operate, and by being able to kind of develop those communities to participate in developing that value system and delivering the value is really important. I think there are really few good examples in South Africa in terms of just public-private partnerships. I think Unilever, for example, the way in which Unilever has taken products like Domestos, Lifebuoy soap, right? But has really partnered with Department of Basic Education, and now that's part of the curriculum. Grade 1, my kid was in grade 1 and came home telling me about good hygiene practice at home, right? The net impact of that is less prevalence in communicable disease. You're creating ambassadors for products. I believe, I stand to be corrected, but I think around 2016, 2017 was perhaps one of the best years for Unilever in terms of their Lifebuoy product, simply as a result of that partnership. So there's seriously business opportunity in social and environmental challenges. In the telco space, I think that you can start from the easy to the most difficult, right? AI, for example, has significant contributions, potential contributions in energy efficiency, and this is, renewable energy is something that is really pertinent and is an important conversation globally. I like to kind of reimagine telecommunication infrastructure as a sensor network, right? It's a widely distributed sensor network. Which you can attach mobile devices, you can attach any kind of sensors that begin to collect data that enables, for example, government to make very clear policy decisions around resource management, energy security, food security, water security. We have an incomplete census that is quite critical for long-term government planning. But mobile penetration in South Africa is above 90%, right? How can we use that to better inform the decisions that need to be made around long-term planning. So I think, and never forget the value in our tertiary institutions and fundamental research. I come from a project where we do really kind of fundamental research in applying AI to manage data streams that are 10 terabytes per second. Right? And being able to extract information as quickly as possible, not lose any information. Yeah. And I think, you know, some of the skills and innovative techniques developed within that environment, within a basic research environment, have got direct application, can be taken forward by industry to really deliver really exciting, innovative products.
Thank you very much. I just want to, maybe get to the audience. So I think you've seen recently that the satellite internet connectivity is kind of gaining momentum. We saw the president shaking the hand with Mr. Elon Musk. And then you could expect that something will be coming down to South Africa. I think the Starlink is already operating in Botswana, Swaziland, and a couple of, countries in the continent. I'm looking at the sponsors here, especially those that are in the telco space. What is your view about, the satellite connectivity? Should we worry it as OpenServe in terms of that really tapping into our market and taking something away from us? Any take on? Prof, I had a discussion with you about that. I want to hear your views, but I want to start with the audience. Any take up? Yes, a man from OpenServe is going to defend his business. And by the way, we got a view from the chair actually asked Alfin about that, and he says, please, go and research about that. I'm sure you got that message,
I better
right?
qualify my response.
Okay,
so I think like all technologies, what we've discovered or understood that they tend to coexist. So I don't think it's going to be one or the either. So satellite is going to play a big part. If you take a cue from what's happened in the US, especially with Starlink, they've gone after the satellite internet customer base. So Hughes network, etc. So they've really eaten into that. And what they call as a donut, right? So the donut concept is that hole where fiber hasn't reached or cable hasn't reached. And that's where satellite penetration starts to come through. Of course, regional and some towns where fiber hasn't reached yet. I truly believe fiber is going to be the driver for even satellite connectivity, and they will coexist. We can't hide away from the fact that satellite is coming through. We have to hopefully partner with them, and I think that's the conversation that the president is having and all the other countries are having with Starlink, is how do you partner with this? All telcos are wondering, how do you partner with it? Because their sort of model is direct to market, and as telcos, we need to be cognizant of it.
Great. So it's a partnership, complementary service to our service. Satish, what do you think? Huh?
Yes.
You agree?
Yeah, you see, as Pushkar said, satellite is one of the areas where we have not got so far. We tried a few times in the past, but we have not been able to get it out. But Starlink, I think, is going to be disruptive coming into South Africa. And together with what we are doing with Telkom, is going to complement what they are going to be doing.
Excellent. Prof, you agree with that? Any contrasting view to that?
There's not a contrasting view. I just want to share with you my take on this. So the satellite and terrestrial network 5G integration is a long traditional research field. Since more than 10 years, we're working on this with building prototypes. Now in 6G, it is called non-terrestrial networks, and we talk about what is called 3D networks. So a satellite is just one component. You have drones, high-altitude platforms, which could be utilized in areas where, let's say, connectivity is not easy to maintain with terrestrial solutions. So again, consider this as ongoing standardization, where really these two different worlds will become together under 3GPP standardization, which means we will see a toolkit, I call it Lego brick components, which in the end allow people to build integrated networks. It is true, currently when talking to big players in Europe, no one intends to build up an own satellite network or high altitude network, and partnerships will become key. But it is very important to understand what Elon Musk has done is great, because he has leapfrogged and similar to the car industry has shown how things could work. But in the very end, this is a proprietary solution. And what we need in the future is more open plug-and-play solutions for the good of everyone. And because I don't know how much time is left in this panel, what I really want to convey is whatever we are talking here about how fancy and cool AI is, and nevertheless, I consider it is a toolkit, which means the toolkits are evolving, but in the very end, you have to apply to something. And what is very important here in South Africa, I think, and this is what I try to do since many years here, to build up the local skills. Yeah? So don't buy just foreign products which seem to work somewhere, because this, in the end, brings you to some good business, but in the long, it is much better to have the people who develop perfect infrastructure solutions here in South Africa. And I think it all starts with the COEs. Enable the COEs to get access to powerful infrastructure, which in my opinion is a 5G-ish kind of infrastructure, software-based. We will see lots of tools now becoming available to build your AI-enabled network. And again, because you use the term AI application, which I think is a very misleading thing for me as a prof, because I want to put things in boxes. So therefore, an application could be everything, an application for managing the network, an application to do human interactions. But in the very end, when I talk about an application domain, it is something like e-health, smart manufacturing, and the like. So this for me is a vertical thing. Now, the data, which is important for AI to do its job, is belonging to someone. We talk here about the shared economy doing the best for the world. So basically, we have touched base a little bit about a smart city infrastructure, when everyone is adding its sensor data for the good of the whole population. You know, we did this 15 years ago in Europe, smart city research, and then the big question was, who's running a city? Who is running these platforms, yeah, in order to do the good for the people? So long story short, I just want to stress that diversification and concentration on specific business areas will become quite important, because in the very end, it is not one large language model which fits the whole world. You have many different, let's call it the digital twins, for the different applications in the network. Yeah? And I think you should start moving into all these areas, because Telkom and the students, connectivity is an important part, but has to be customized and specialized for the use cases. Let's go for the use cases.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'd like to finish with a question moving in all these areas. There's a view that, I think Lunga calls, beyond connectivity. And I want to throw this to, I'm going to start with Deloitte, because these are the sponsors. So Deloitte is an insightful sponsor, so I want to get the insight from Deloitte. Is moving beyond connectivity. Our chair always say that don't forget who you are as a telco. The GCO says you need to understand where you are, but diversify, look at different areas of generating revenue. What is your view on that? I mean, the issue around moving into fintech, edtech, agri-tech, whatever vertical is there a business case for us to invest into that? And do we see use cases across the globe or even in the continent? Is Luto here? I see Rutani. Any take up if I don't have, I was giving Deloitte an opportunity to market themselves, but it looks like, any take up? Yeah, Nokia is there. We must come and have a discussion, Nokia.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no, I think...
Oh, there's Nokia. Sorry, let me give a Deloitte, I didn't see it.
No,
We'll come to you.
I think after this, Quinton, who leads our AI TMT practice and capability, will also be getting into some of these particular discussions. I think how we generally approach it is less of a technology question and more of a business question. What is the actual fundamental business value that we want to generate, and does that actually trace back to the technological decisions that we actually want to make? So I think our approach is more in terms of when we think about this AI journeys and so forth, it's really kind of made of a few pillars. At the very center, we actually anchor ourselves on actually the ethical questions. From a bias, from a trustworthiness, from a privacy, some of the themes that have actually come out. Because if you can't govern it well, then you could be setting out, you could be letting out a monster. So you need to get the governance and the guardrails correct, and then surrounding all of that is the actual business value. Everything that's being done needs to be linked back to the actual business value. And in order to achieve the business value within the context of a clear governance and controlled environment, there's then the workforce consideration, which is the capability. What are the capabilities we need in order to realize that business value that we've intended for in the context of our governance domain? Then the technology is then another pillar in that. So we kind of see it kind of in tandem, but very much led by business value in the context of the clarity of the risks that we actually face as an organization, that allows us to then make a decision. Is it fintech? Is it e-health? Whatever the case is, but that is not a leading kind of decision maker. It's the actual business value that we want to generate. But I'm sure my colleague Quinton will touch on some of this a little bit more.
Great, thanks, Rizani. So ethical, responsible AI, I think that's the message that we also got yesterday. You still want to close out on that?
I think Prof made it very clear. At the end, it is about what are the data that a telco has inside his network, inside at his infrastructure layer, application layer, or management layer that can be used to monetize. When we look today and we connect somebody with a 5G connection, 4G, or a fiber, we need to understand what can we do more on that. And potentially, this access point is a revenue generating, but we need to understand which data do we need. And actually, the view that we have is that whatever it is a big data center, a edge data center, or a ONT in the home of someone, it's a Pico data center, and what revenue can we generate out of it with the information you have. And that's what the collaboration is very important, because we're not going to have the telco building all the application for the health, for utility, and so on. Those are specific sector use cases that need to be developed, and that's where the center of excellence and all the skill development are really needed to develop those applications for those domains. But what are the data that you do have as a telco and inside your infrastructure and your partnership with all your partners you work with that can support this service to be given an additional value? And that's what I think, capturing the value chain and leave the value chain in the country instead of just being exported.
Thank you very much. I think with that, there's a pending.
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
Thanks, Sil. I just want to latch on to the question of business case, right?
Yeah.
And I want to pull it back to the earlier discussion around use cases on zero-touch networks, autonomous network. I think yesterday we saw a presentation, I think it was by Emmanuel, and he basically took us through, I think, 5 levels of network automation. What are we seeing out there in terms of use cases? Are we seeing a lot of adoption in terms of zero-touch networks with regards to automation? And at what level are we seeing those use cases? Thanks.
Thank you very much. We've run out of time. I know this is quite an exciting discussion. But I think what is very clear is that AI is still a journey. It's a long game. We've got companies that have really advanced. We've got those that are still experimenting with this. What is important is really to look at what are the business drivers that you want to drive, and what are the things that you want to implement which will add value to your business. What is also important, I think, is the issue around the partnership, and that's why we've got the partners here. We need really partners with the best in the industry to make sure that we address all the challenges that we face in both within the business in making profit, but also beyond that, looking at the societal problems. And I think what is critical is that we need to really address the issue around responsible AI. Because AI can be both useful, but it can also be destructive. And that's why you've got a lot of companies that have AI frameworks. And I don't know, I think if you were to ask many companies here, if you've got an AI policy or framework, I can tell you there are still many companies that don't have those policies and framework, but they are experimenting with this technology. But I want to thank the experts here, Prof. Adrian, Naeem, Manaf. Thanks very much for your time and for your insightful discussion, but also to the audience, a round of applause to everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Donati.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Of course, true to the theme, I think the panel really, of course, notwithstanding the discussions around just co-creating shared value, I think they really gave us, a view on a number of things, including how important it is that companies really have strategies that, develop and, of course, deploy to ensure systems like AIs and strategies like AIs are implemented and, of course, embedded in the companies across the value chain, as every speaker has said. So thank you so much to the panel. On that note, we are going to go on a 30-minute break. So that means roughly maybe 11:40, if we can all be back, please. We're going to hear from Deloitte. And of course, we're also going to be taking you through to the SATNAC challenge, where, of course, that involves our students. And that is an exciting part of this conference that runs parallel to it every single year. So please be back for that, for the SATNAC Industry Challenge. Thank you so much. Let's take a quick break. quite amazing because it really does involve the centers of excellence. It really does involve research and development and the commitment and just the partnerships that have gone beyond this. All right, but for now, I'm going to call Quinton Williams, and he's a director analytics from Deloitte. And Quinton is essentially going to be speaking to us about connected intelligence, the future of telco as the enabler for AI and a human communication. Quite interesting. Thank you so much, Quinton.
Thank you, Nati. And morning, everybody, to our esteemed guests and colleagues. Our fabulous MC challenged us on Monday evening, and she challenged us in the bush, which is an interesting place to be challenged. But she said we must do the blue sky gazing mind trip for these couple of days. And that's why I thought, I'll use this picture to generate that kind of response. The great thing about when you're veering into the night sky is that you're actually looking into the past to understand your current so that you can better predict your future. And that's what I want us to go through over the next 20 minutes, to really peer into what was the past looking like for AI and where is it going. Now, it's difficult to follow our earlier speaker, Tom Bird, because unfortunately I don't have a WW2 or a World War II story. But he did set the foundation for me because he was saying that, these AI agents are actually becoming assistants. I want to take it a step further in saying AI has the capability to actually become an intelligent advisor, assisting us in our daily decision making. Why is that? Because AI now has the capability to understand us without effort in the way we want to be understood. Text-based, audio-based. You don't need to go and do fancy SQL statements, create data models, and create data tables. No, you just prompt it. You just talk to it, and it understands what you're trying to say. It understands context, and it understands what it needs to get done. The second thing is that anybody can now do anything digitally without a high level of expertise. When we were doing GenAI about 1.5 years ago, I was trying to explain GenAI like you would explain to your grandma, and I couldn't. But the cameraman did. And the reason why he did that was because he was using GenAI on a daily basis. He was creating educational videos. And before, he had to hire a very expensive software developer to write the code for him that created the animations in the Unreal 3D engine. What did he do? He actually went to ChatGPT, said, I want this scene with these actors interacting this way, and ChatGPT created the code for him. He copied and pasted into the Unreal Engine, done. No expensive software developer, no DevOps. The animation was just created. So we all have that expertise now in our hands, which means there's a fundamental shift in the way we as humans engage with digital systems. And understanding that is quite important. The other thing that happened is the way we produce has changed. The human production effort has changed. In the past, it was manually driven, right? We had to look at the sky, see the weather, is the rain coming? It's not us who produces, nature produces, and we were part of the effort. Unfortunately, in some organizations today, people are still looking at the sky and hoping rain would come to change their fortunes. But it moved from manually driven to factory driven. We created tools. We took the raw material. We wanted to be in charge of what can be created. We took the raw material and made our own things. And we started to create tools that can create factories that can do it. Then we went even further, say, okay, that's not enough just to do raw material. We as humans want to create our own things. And that's where we've gone into the digital-driven age. And most of our companies are still there. That's why we have digital transformation strategies. And that's why, there's a CIO and a CTO and all of these kind of things, because we as humans are in the space where our ingenuity, our cleverness are producing things. But we've gone beyond that, because we've now gone into the phase where what we have produced are now producing, right? AI are now creating content. That software developer, his job is now changed. He's not getting that side hustle from the cameraman anymore, so now what? Right? All of our jobs have changed, and we need to understand what that means, because the key thing is actually that if you want to get to effective production, you must use that AI computing ability to be consistent, to be fast, to scale, right? With our human sort of insights and our human creativity. But if you're not adding that process or that business process with it, you're still going to fail, because you still need to understand what process do I need to put in place so that the human can engage with the AI and so that I can actually build an approach that brings value. And that's the key thing. But let's pause, right? Like, over the last year and a half, all we heard was AI, 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 AI. Let's pause a little bit. Like, let's take a deep breath. Okay. What has actually changed? Because what we've seen is that the business outcomes that we want to achieve is still the same. Our goals is still the same, to make money as an enterprise, right? To add to shareholder value, as we saw earlier with Dr. Knox's presentation. But the process of getting there was, we used to do business intelligence, then it was analytics, then artificial intelligence, and now generative AI. And the reason why I use that picture, that's a picture from the tree here at the lodge, taken this morning, is they are actually interconnected. Because the things that generative AI generates, simulated data, can be used in your analytics, which can be used to actually provide better business intelligence. So all of these things are interlinked. But how are they interlinked, right? So let's start with business intelligence. We know this. We've been doing this for years. We know that normally you use stats, you get data analysts, business analysts, you've got all these reporting tools, you've got all this sort of data that you need to govern, make sure that they are managed well. But the key thing why you did this was to provide better information to your business departments, right? So that they can look at the report and make a human decision based on human gut, human insights, right? It's not that the report is telling you anything. You are looking at the trends and making a decision. You are looking at what's happening there and using your experience, your information to make a decision. And that has had tremendous value because it helps you understand what has happened and what might happen. And that 13.5% is what sort of people see in terms of the impact it has on cost reduction and on revenue. It's a big number, right? Because every executive here probably has a report that they look at on a weekly basis on which they make a decision. Because the data is just too much. Like, we can't now rely on, okay, there's a departmental meeting, and then the departmental meeting is followed by a quarterly meeting, and then there's an executive meeting, and that's how information gets reported. No, we need these business intelligence tools. But the problem is now there's thousands of reports, and somebody needs to manage it, and the cost is high because we need so many Power BI servers, or we need so many tools that we need to pay for. But what people are asking for is a natural language processing. Can I engage with that report in a way that makes sense to us as humans? I just want to ask a question, and it must give me an answer. I don't need to wait for 6 months of data engineering and then data analysts before I get an answer. But it has a huge impact. And then we move to sort of the analytics world, where in the telco space, we were actually using it to predict and extract new insights across the value chain, right? Right from where you were using it in your customer value management, where you were trying to understand things like customer lifetime value, churn prediction. Are people going to drop their data? Are they going to go inactive? All of those kind of work that you're doing here in the customer value management space created anything from 6 to 12% revenue value for your organization. The best in the world, which is sort of, a telecoms company there in the middle is at the 12% mark. Most companies are at 3%, so there's still leeway, right? There's still things that you can do. But analytics wasn't just used for customer value management. It's important in the customer 360 space. Understanding my customer, creating customer personas. We heard this morning Dr. Knox say we need to move from personas to a more granular level of customer understanding. And that's important because you can do things like loyalty. You can do things like understanding who's the influencer in the family, who's paying the account in the family, doing that sort of social network analysis. Who's calling who, so that you can actually get value from that network of people, not just from the singular customer. Network optimization is a big thing. Imagine the millions and billions of rand that you're spending on your towers and your infrastructure and your fiber, and understanding that you can actually manage that and optimize that using analytics. Similar in terms of doing things like fraud detection, which is a big thing in South Africa. So analytics has the value, probably about a 12% mark is what the research is saying. Then we're moving to sort of the artificial intelligence, things like computer vision, natural language processing. Now you need to hire AI engineers. You need to now actually understand how to optimize your plans and your strategies, which is a different question than just understanding what happened. You now actually want to make things happen and do that in the most efficient way. And for that, you're using AI. You're using things like network optimization and predictive maintenance. That's AI. You're using things like intelligent virtual assistants, which Dr. Knox talked about this morning, and Tom Bird from Amdocs. You're using things like AI-based billing. I thought that was interesting, right? Where AI is actually analyzing the transactions to do a dynamic billing and a dynamic pricing for your customers. Customer experience management in terms of the clever contact centers, the GenAI-based contact centers, and then predictive analytics for customer turn. So now you're using artificial intelligence. And in a sense, when you're looking at your organization, you need to think, but am I doing these things? Am I using AI to do fraud detection? Or is that still a cost based at the bottom of my income statement? Am I doing data-driven marketing so that my customers feel the heart of my organization and feel the empathy? So all of these things you need to ask. And then we move to the generative AI phase, where now the question is, can we create what should happen? And can we scale that across the organization? And now we're talking about, is there a chief LLM officer? Are there prompt engineers in your organization? And you have to understand, am I using generative AI to configure and run my business? So at the heart of the business, am I using it to reinvent what the enterprise can do? So now you're asking questions like, is there a differentiation in my business strategy? Or was my strategy generated from ChatGPT? It's a good question, and we've seen organizations do that. Can I optimize my enterprise structure? So can I give generative AI my HR organogram and ask it to optimize that, given all the job descriptions? Those are things you can do. Am I doing efficient business processes? So if I look at the business processes across my organization, are there processes that I can actually change? Creative processes that I normally thought was dependent on a human. So that's in terms of my core of my business. The second thing is, am I looking at my customer and creating offerings and experiences that matter to them at the human level? And that's where generative AI can help, because you can create intuitive user experiences and workflows. You can generate products at a very granular level, new data bundles, new voice bundles, new bundles that speaks to me personally as a consumer. And then lastly, how can I actually reach my consumer? Have I changed the channel journeys? Because now I can reach them in different ways using generative AI. Have I changed the way my customers are interacting with my brand? So all of these kind of questions you are asking. And the key questions is, how can I use it to enhance my day-to-day job? So when you're sitting there and you have to write emails, you have to go through presentations, you have to listen to people in meetings, where can generative AI actually help to change that business process? And what are the roadblocks that's blocking you from doing this in real time? So you can see all of these things actually matter. And I put a question mark there on the revenue impact, because anybody that's telling you it's this percentage or this much can't be sure. We don't know yet, actually, because most organizations are doing proof of concepts, they're doing small things, they haven't really scaled it across the organization to really understand what that impact is. But it's important because it enhances the customer experience and it helps you get more insight from your data, so that you're actually moving from, you looking at a report, at a BI, and making a decision, to actually you engaging and interacting with AI to together make an actionable thing that will make a difference in the business. So now, you're moving from the sort of isolated decisions, each executive having their own report, to analytics that gives you that integrated decisions. That's why sort of data integration and having one view of the customer was also important. You're actually moving to enhanced decisions where you can simulate and generate new types of interactions. You can actually have synthetic data that helps you make that analytics better. You can use generative AI to act, to create, and it can create anything. I always use the example in the maintenance or in the factory space. It can create new factory layouts, new employee schedules, new job descriptions. So it can actually act and help you to have enhanced decisions and actions. But the key thing is, do you have a benefits model? Can you actually track the value? Can you actually say, this decision made by me and AI had this impact, and there's the value? So it's important to enhance not just your decision making, but to add a benefits model to it. Okay, so let's touch. And anybody would now realize I'm using the rugby analogy of pause, touch, and my last segment will be engage. So what I mean with let's touch, essentially, if you were thinking, what can I not do with all of this AI and generative AI? Let's start at the top. You can have a Gen AI engagement engine that understands your customer, not understand like, oh no, I'm putting him in the Deloitte category, or I'm putting him in the professional category, or I'm putting him in the doctor category. No, Quentin Williams, you're putting me in the Quentin Williams category, group of one, and you understand what I need. And it's not so difficult. I can use the example that, my father has been a Telkom customer since the beginning. And if you were to analyze his transactional records, you probably understood when all of us were born, because there were certain spikes in calls to certain people. You probably understood when he went to Wi-Fi. You probably understood when I studied, because there was spike in the internet traffic at night. All of those kind of things you can figure out, and you can predict, okay, no, he's got enough sons now, he's not going to get another kid, but maybe he's nearing retirement age, and I need to do something else. So it's not just about understanding the customer, but understanding their future wants and needs. And when they make a request, you can immediately have that information at your fingertips. So you need to have an engine, an engagement engine, that links up with your behavior, your normal traditional AI that can understand behavior, predict how that behavior will change when you intervene. And then you can do lots of things. You can hook up your distribution channels with other products, other companies' products, your own products, and bring that together through that engine. And why is this important? Because telcos used to own the touch points with customers, right? You used to be able to only send SMSs or USDs or make voice calls, and telcos owns that. Now we are communicating via over-the-top services and apps. Telcoms don't own that anymore. And if you look at Meta's strategy as an example, it's a public strategy. They want to own that. They want to create new 3D augmented reality glasses so that they're not dependent on the mobile phone as a distribution channel. So you've got to understand, how do I own that distribution channel, that touch points with the customers as a telco company, so that I can serve them and my enterprise customers and most likely bring them together. And I'm not talking about a marketplace. We've passed the era of Uber and Airbnb. I'm talking about an engine that brings products together with how we actually touch the customers. But let's swap that around, right? Let's swap that around. So let's say the enterprises are now on the one end. What telcos still own is a lot of the customer information. You know where people are. You know who they're connecting with. You understand the network. You understand the financial flows. If you are in fintech, you understand how they're actually using data, how they're actually using voice. That is valuable information. That's valuable, so much information that, the likes of Meta is $1 trillion company because they own a lot of that. They, on their apps, recording where people are, what they are doing, who they're communicating with, how their network is looking like, so that they actually sell that. So again, this part of the telco space is being threatened, right? But don't forget that you can still play that connecting role. Because ultimately, if we go to my large side and say, let's engage, and the second challenge our fabulous MC put to us was the concept of biomimicry. And since we're in the Kruger National ecosystem, what's going to happen in the future is you're going to have these intelligent agents, these AI buddies that's going to help me. I'm going to have a computer buddy that's an AI. If I'm buying a new computer, or if I want to understand what my computing needs will change, like my AI buddy will tell me, like the example I have is my wife recently moved into content creation, and suddenly that free Gmail isn't enough anymore. Now we need to pay a monthly fee to increase the storage space to store all the videos. So now I, as a Deloitte partner, have to spend hours to help her figure out what's the best storage space and which hyperscaler to use, where I could have just asked somebody and say, look, my wife is a content creator, she's going to create so many videos every week, let me know what's the best computing one. Same thing with my investment guru. I can go through all of these examples, or my retail therapist that would get the information from my fridge to see that I've used up all the milk, and suddenly by my door, please open up for Checker 6060, without me having to intervene. So you would have all these virtual AI agents. And why is this important for a telco company? Who's bringing them together? Who's providing the connectivity? Who's going beyond infrastructure and actually helping the consumer understand how this will be interpreted? Because these agents will speak to lots of other agents. It will become a full-on network of humans and AI. And yes, all of these AI agents will need an IP address, but they probably would need an MSISDN number as well. How are you going to onboard them? How are you going to do a recall of them? But the key point is you can actually now be the catalyst of bringing humans and AI agents together so that we are part of this advanced ecosystem. And this advanced ecosystem means you as a telco have to make the decision. Am I investing in one of these? So I'm going to build out an agent that's going to be a mobile shop agent or a connectivity agent. And, that might bring you a lot of money. Or am I going to take the strategy and say, I'm going to be the circle, the one ring that rules them all, to bring these agents together, to bring the humans together, not just in terms of connectivity, but understanding that insights. That's why I showed the previous two pictures to say, you, given the information that you have, can actually provide insights, not just to the consumer in terms of my transactional behavior when I use the example of my father, but also bringing products of other enterprises together with the customer. And if you can figure out how to maintain that connectivity from an infrastructure is easy, but from an insights point of view, meaning you run the engine that generates the insights. You run the engine that analyzes the data to provide new information. You are actually providing the ecosystem within which these decisions can be made, optimized, and monitored. And that is my message. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, thank you very much. I think another round of applause for Quinton because he is our last speaker. All right, that was our last speaker for day 2 and, of course, the final day of the conference. Whew, we've come to the end almost. Well, we still have some exciting things to do, just 2 more items before we wrap up for the afternoon. But just coming back to your presentation, Quinton, I think that pause followed by, the touch and less engaged. By the way, did you see that I also featured in the less engaged as a news anchor? So thank you so much for that. It's good seeing yourself in that value chain. But that, that idea and that pause, and speaking about the processes and the methodology. I think, again, it comes to that point that I raise about just how important it is that we, immerse ourselves in complexity. And by that I mean just embracing complexity and limiting this quick fix, mentality, this always rushing to come up with solutions. But, to find the solutions ultimately to that complexity is important for me, and that's some of the things that I took out. So thank you so much for that. And just want to talk about that blue sky, concept. It actually was an idea that was sparked by a gentleman that I was sitting next to on a plane. I did say earlier on, I think it was the night before we started, that I will eventually reveal his name. It was Mr. Solwazi Majola, a gentleman who I keep coming across to, during this conference. So thank you so much for that. We spent over an hour just discussing various things, and I've never met such a passionate individual. And I think that, again, the conversation sparked the importance of networks. And I really was inspired by how passionate he is. And one of the things that he is passionate about is what we are now going to be discussing. And so I would now like to call on stage Technical Program Chair, Dr. Josiah Chavula, who is a Senior Lecturer, Computer Science, University of Cape Town. He is going to be taking us through, of course, the Student Paper Awards and the announcement thereof. Very important, I must add, which is another phase, of course, that will display just how important it is that the academia side of this partnership and this association that Telkom has built around its business plan is so important. But thank you so much, Josiah, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So if you've been looking around yesterday and today, you've seen posters outside of students from Telecom Centers of Excellence showcasing the research work that they're doing in their various programs of study. And that is just part of the research work that we will be showcasing. This afternoon, there will be research papers presented by several of our students from the research centers of excellence from the various universities that are represented here. So what I'm going to do now is to present the best papers from all the papers that we've received from students that we've reviewed, that we have accepted. We've selected the best 3 of them that we would like to highlight to you, and then acknowledge those students for their best work that they have presented. So I want to thank the Technical Program Committee that was involved in all of this, organizing the papers, calling for the papers to be submitted, and reviewing. So a lot of our academic colleagues that are here, and some of our industry colleagues as well, were involved in that review process. So I'll just give a brief overview of what that process was like. But most importantly, first of all, I want to thank our sponsors for the best papers for this year, Huawei, who are going to give some gifts to these students who have achieved these best papers. So thank you very much, Huawei, for sponsoring these. So just a quick overview of what really goes into this process. When the SATNAC conference is announced, usually at the beginning of the year, March, April, May, we also send out a call for papers. This is to invite students, academics that are part of the SATNAC community to submit papers that then can be presented at this conference and also inform the discussion that we do have here. Right, so we sent out a call for papers in May and June, very excited, and then we received close to 130 papers from students across the universities. That was very exciting until we realized that actually we have to review these papers. So if you're in the academic circles, you know that that is not a very fun exercise to undergo. That's why I put it in yellow there. But we really are thankful for all the reviewers that were involved. We had 76 reviewers involved in this process to generate over 376 reviews across all the papers that we received. So thank you very much for all your hard work to really review these papers and give feedback to the students about their work, how they can make it better, how they can improve it, and just to give them insights about the future of the work that they are doing. So thank you very much for your effort in doing that. Again, just to highlight how much of this came from different fields. So we had computer science track, looking at papers that are more on the software side of things, algorithms and stuff like that. We had 47 papers submitted. And then from the electronic and electrical engineering aspect, we had 37 papers submitted. And then we had another category for short papers. So this is work that is still in progress, not fully evaluated yet. And that is the work that you'd see in the posters that you've seen outside. So we had 29 short papers and 17 short papers from the electrical engineering side of things. So that's the distribution of papers that we received, just to give you a highlight. And we accepted about 45 papers, full papers in total that we have then, we are going to see them presented this afternoon. So that just gives you some kind of idea about the distribution of papers. We have about 21 papers from computer science, 23 papers from electrical engineering, and some distribution of papers also from the short papers category as well. But what I wanted to point out maybe might be interesting. The theme of this conference here has been about machine learning, AI-driven systems. And we see that most of the research that our students are doing in these universities, or at least going by the papers that we've seen, is very much aligned to the fields of machine learning. So we look at the keywords that we see from all these papers when we extract the metadata. Most of the papers would be from fields of machine learning, deep learning, machine learning models, deep learning models, and so on and so forth. So it's really, seems like where most of the research is going now. But of course, it's mostly applied. So we see that being applied in health. We see that being applied in energy efficiency, in network management, and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting to see the kind of research direction that the research community is taking in this country. All right, so at this point now, I will announce the best papers given these categories. I would want to invite to the front, we will have the Deputy CEO for Huawei, going to help me to award the students. If he's in here, please, you're welcome to come to the front. Thank you. And then also from Telkom, we are inviting Lebo, who is the managing executive for Telkom Mobile. Please, if you're in here, I would like you to come to the front. Thank you very much. So, yeah, please stand on this side. Right, so we will announce, we start with the third burst and the second burst, and then we will announce the best paper, and then the students, at least one of the students in that paper is going to come forward to receive their gift and be acknowledged. All right, so best paper number 3 is from the University of the Northwest. So if you're from the University of Northwest, you should be excited at this point because it might just be you. And the number 3 paper is a paper by Arnold van der Meer and Albert Harburg. Congratulations. Very much. Stand in the middle and take a picture. The second best paper is from the University of Witwatersrand. And this is for the paper by Francis Pili, Fambilai Takula, and Chabalala. Congratulations. Well done. Well done. And in the middle there. And now for the best paper. This is from the University of Pretoria. And this is for the paper by Marchant Fori for their paper, Automated Crocodile Detection Using Deep Learning and Synthetic Data. Congratulations. Well done, well done. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Huawei. Thank you, Telkom. I really would like to invite you all to attend student sessions that are happening this afternoon. They'll be presenting 4 parallel sessions starting from about 1:20. Please be there, encourage them, give them some feedback. It'll be nice to see you all there. And basically also to hear these best papers being presented there. So thank you very much, and thank you all.
So much. All right, that was Dr. Josiah Chavula. And just to give you a sense of who he obtained his PhD in computer science from the University of Cape Town in the year 2017. And of course, his research focused mainly on performance of internet systems in low resource context, with emphasis on data-driven networks performance engineering, the interplay between internet performance and security, user-centric QoS and QoE, I hope I'm saying that correctly, measurements, and internet universality, particularly with respect to constrained internet access. And of course, his profile is also contained then on our website. Of course, now it is time to announce then the SATNAC Industry Challenge winners. And of course, there's more of the students here that will, of course, be receiving their particular acknowledgement. And I do want you to bear with us, because I think this is like the previous announcement we've seen there with the Best Papers Awards. It's just one of those very commendable things, I think, that particularly students go through. So, just bear with us as we call them up and call the directors and those companies that have been involved in sponsoring this particular part. And I think it's such a nice thing to see, to have, students just put in the work, get those challenges across, and interpret them in terms of how they will best serve communities in this country and, of course, the greater continent. I mean, some of the ideas behind and how these students approach these challenges is quite remarkable to read and see. So I'm going to call Dr. Molapo in a moment, but before I do that, I want us to play just a quick video just to, again, give you a little bit of context in terms of these particular awards, and after that, she will then come up.
Good morning, and welcome to the very first broadcast of the SATNAC Industry Solutions Challenge finale. Today is the very first of our presentations that will be done by students from around the country.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the 2024 SATNAC Innovation Challenge. I'd like to acknowledge the students in and beyond South Africa from across our country and our continent who have submitted and put themselves forward to solving some of the most pertinent challenges facing organizations as well as our society as a whole.
So today we are focusing on Telkom consumer-sponsored challenge, which explores innovative solutions for network fault management. SATNAC, short for the South African Telecommunications, Networks and Applications Conference, has established itself as a premier event where academia, industry, and government collaborate to push the boundaries of research and innovation.
And I'm going to let my fellow panelists introduce themselves.
Thank you, ma'am. P.T. Monaghan, I'm the Chief Executive of Amdocs South Africa, and it's a pleasure to be here with Telkom, SATNAC, and all other members of the industry.
To achieve sustainability is not an easy task. As you scale, it gets more and more difficult. So one of the things that we wanted to do with this challenge was to look for fresh ideas on how we can identify, classify, and then recommend the best possible action for every point in our network for us to achieve the most sustainable use of the power that we invest in.
Huawei has been in business for almost 40 years now. We started off as a ICT provider, specifically with networks for the telcos or the carriers. We've had a long-standing partnership and sponsorship with SATNAC, which is why we are here, and we are happy to be part of the development that happens within the industry.
I am honored and proud to have been part of your journey. I am proud of the quality of the pitches that stood up in front of me. The deliberations that tried to extract a winning pitch out of those pitches was not an easy one because of the quality of the work that was presented here today.
Shortly after this, we're going to go into an education session where the judges will deliberate and decide who wins for this topic.
I just want to commend everyone. That was absolutely fabulous. I got goosebumps throughout. For your bravery, for your presentation, for the work. I was amazed by the amount of detail that went into your thinking. Even, the pipelines in your design going straight down to the T's.
All right. Well, you would have seen her in the beginning of that video, Dr. Thabi Molapo. When they say dynamites come in small packages, she is that dynamite. So Dr. Molapo is the Executive for Research and Innovation at Telkom SA in the Group Innovation and Transformation Office, leading industry academic partnerships and R&D in connected intelligence and customer experience. Previously, she was an AI research manager and research scientist in user experience and natural languages processing at IBM Research. She has received multiple awards for research and innovation from organizations like Google, Nokia Research, and the Schlumberger Foundation, among others. Thank you so much, Dr. Thabi.
Thanks, Onati. Thank you very much. There isn't quite much to cover. I think the video gave some background to the session, as well as the presentation by Dr. Josiah. Just a few things to underscore, maybe two, before we go into the actual challenge, announce winners. In 26 years that SATNAC has existed, two things have remained a priority, not only for SATNAC, but for us as the leadership at Telkom, right? And the first is recognizing that research at its center, like Josiah showed, is what fuels innovation, what fuels us to enable to advance the industry. And over these 26 years, we have been very deliberate about funding students, but also offering this platform for students to present their research. We often say that many of the top academics in the country and globally who are South African somehow presented their first paper here at SATNAC. Most academics, professors here will tell you that their first paper was here at SATNAC. So it's extremely important to remind us all how important this platform is. My first academic conference as well, about 12 years ago, was SATNAC in Swaziland. And that was when I decided that I'm going to go and pursue a postgrad degree. So again, thank you to our sponsors. We often forget to announce that we have industry partners that fund the COE program. Much as the Telkom Group hosts and runs the program, we have other industry partners. I can see you, Chris, Nokia as an example. Huawei and other SATNAC sponsors as well drive the COE program. And within the Telkom Group, we are very fortunate and grateful to OpenServe and all the subsidiaries and business units within Telkom for supporting this this particular initiative of training students and again accelerating research in South Africa. But before we continue, again, I'm now talking to our broader academics. The second objective we try to achieve is to narrow the gap between industry and academia. And this is necessary because, as we said, research drives innovation. Research drives progress in industry. And yet, at the same time, academia needs the insights from industry for us to research what's relevant, right? And the sooner we narrow this gap, the more we enable the translation of academic knowledge into industry application, the more beneficial the outcomes would be. So our dear professors, our dear academics, thank you for continuously coming to SATNAC, for supporting us in this sometimes difficult marriage of trying to make industry work with academia. For 26 years, some of you have been here since the very beginning of SATNAC. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for collaborating with us. And thank you for always being there to, again, be agile as needed. I'm looking at most of you today. We're very grateful for your partnership. Gentlemen and dear professors. That said, one of the programs that was launched about 3 years ago when Dr. Yankees started as the chairman of SATNAC was to think about one of the initiatives to, again, enable students to take part in this translation of, again, academic knowledge and research expertise into industry solutions. And we pitched it to our sponsors, again, at SATNAC, most of which are, in fact, also sponsors of the COE program, and said, can you identify industry problems that we can give to students? Many of them solve theoretical problems in the classrooms. Many of them go and sit through textbooks that are theoretical, right? Many of them excel in publishing research that Dr. Yasser talked about here, but often it's not until they get to the workplace that they know what industry actually needs. And thank you to our sponsors for responding, right? They came the last 2 years, it's our 3rd year now, they gave industry problems that students from across the region, Southern Africa, have solved many of these problems. So we have now gone through 4 months of this program. Each of the sponsors issued a topic. The students were trained during this 4 months. We're seeing here our training partner, innovator partner is Open Innovation Studios. They assisted us in training the students over 4 months on how to solve for industry. So we didn't just throw them in here and let them take that textbook into solutions. We actually invested in training them, helped them think about what industry solutions actually look like. It's a long process, and after this, we're going to continue again to support them in implementing some of these ideas. So moving forward, I'm going to invite one by one the leaders of the companies, the CEOs, and in some cases, some of the executives of the companies that responded to be sponsors in the particular challenge. And I'll go over them and then announce one by one the winners of each of the solutions. And the clip you saw earlier is from the Innovation Innovation Finale Week, which we held about 2 weeks ago, where each of the students who are participating, the finalists, presented live to the sponsors over 4 days, over 3 days actually. And many of these companies sent their leaders, their CEOs, the executives came and sat with academics as well to judge the presentations. And what we are seeing today are the winners who came from that process. So I'm going to ask now from Amdocs. I would like to ask the regional vice president of Amdocs, who I believe is with us today, to come and join me in awarding the students who came first, who were the winners of the very first topic that Amdocs gave. Just to announce that Amdocs actually issued 2 challenges related to some challenges that we see in telecommunications. And the first topic that we are awarding today was on hyper-personalized user experiences. And I think we heard actually in the presentation that Amdocs gave this morning that it's a challenge we're seeking to solve. How do we use AI to hyper-personalize interactions in telecommunication companies? So the winners of this particular topic are all from IIE, Varsity College, and it gives me great pleasure to announce and ask them to come and receive their certificates from the Vice President of Amdocs. So first, I'll call Kitli Mabasa. I believe he is here to come and receive his award. Blessing Adefila and Kebotekhile Molala. They are all from IIE Varsity College. That's Blessing Adefila. And Rebotegile Molala. Thank you very much. Please, you can stay with us, Uri. So, 3 facts leads to the next topic. The first is our very first challenge, which was in fact a hackathon that we did with Telkom Future Makers in 2022. Amdocs was actually the very first sponsor among our sponsors to actually go for this challenge. They were the primary and sole sponsor 2 years ago. Thank you again, Uri, and to the Amdocs team. We appreciate your partnership. The second one being the topic back then, 2 years ago, was on fraud detection, looking at instances like SimSwap, etc., which happens to be, again, a problem for this year. And we have been asking why we haven't cracked it yet. And we have now challenged the academic community to say we are struggling with fraud. If you can, again, chat to the Amdocs team and some of our our teams, you'll identify why industry still needs a lot of investigation and research into fraud detection. So without any further delay, the students who won this particular challenge on fraud detection using AI are, in fact, from the University of Eswatini, where our third fun fact comes from. Last year, during our second round doing this, we had a team from Eswatini who won the challenge. And this year, when the team released the call for participation, we had well over 30 students from Eswatini who actually applied to participate. And I think what we are seeing is the impact of this program and how it is influencing students across from the community. So from the University of Eswatini, I'm very proud to announce the winners of the Amdocs Challenge on fraud detection using AI, the first being Bandile Malaza. And then Tsidiso Hlope. And lastly, Wandile Shatswako. Thank you very much. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And then quickly moving on, the second sponsor that issued a challenge was Huawei, which went straight again into the privacy area, looking at data privacy in AI. And the problem was pitched as what we're seeing, I think, from the last few days of the conference is industries adopting AI. Yeah? And the question is, as we increase our adoption of AI, how do we also match that up with data privacy and ensure that one doesn't lift up and we compromise the privacy by chasing only the accuracy and the performances of the models that we actually deploy in industry. So thank you to Huawei. Thank you very much to the Deputy CEO of Huawei for being with us here to announce the winners of this challenge. And in this case, we only have one winner from West University who participated in this challenge as a sole participant. Andile Mgumezulu is the winner of the Huawei topic. And next, we have a topic that was issued by OpenSurf. So I'd like to invite the CEO of OpenSurf to please join me in awarding the certificates to the winners of the OpenSurf Challenge. And this year, OpenSurf gave a topic that is very similar, again, to what we saw from the OpenSurf executive who spoke here yesterday, which is looking at, again, using AI to optimize energy usage in equipment buildings. And students participated, and actually the speaker who spoke yesterday was one of the industry experts who led students actually during that challenge. So I don't see him, but again, thank you very much to the OpenSurf experts and all other sponsors for giving us experts to guide this process. So for OpenSurf, the winners come from Northwest University And I'll call them up quickly, and then I'll tell you a story about this particular team as well. So first winner, Frederick Stein. And also Karabo Macau. Frederick, if you can stay, please. Karabo Macau. Thank you. I think even before Alton goes, last year OpenServe was a sponsor of this program, and the challenge was on, again, intelligent solutions against, again, during the energy challenge, especially with load shedding. And these two gentlemen won that challenge last year. And they have won the OpenServe challenge again this year, which made the jobs of the judges very difficult because in the deliberations, the judges wondered, should we award them this again? And the reason they ended up winning is because there was a large margin between themselves and the next contenders. So truthfully, with all, with all excellence in what you produce, we thank you for your contributions. OpenServe is, in fact, excited to explore some of the ideas that you have presented. Even from all of us at R&D, we would like to work with some of your ideas to take this forward. Thank you. Brilliant work. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And then quickly, as we almost conclude, we have our last sponsor, who is, again, a Telkom consumer, as a sponsor of this challenge. A very interesting topic that was posed this year, and I'd like to welcome the CEO of Telkom Consumer to help us to give this award. And in this case, the students were asked to think about solutions that, again, use AI for network fault management. We all know, those who work within any area of networking, of communications, how difficult it is to track faults, to manage their resolutions, etc. And the students were challenged to come up with solutions for this. So the winners of this particular team are also from Eswatini, and I'd like to call them up to receive their awards from the CEO of Telkom Consumer and Small Business, Samkelom Sibi. Tempinkosi Mkanta. And Pepile Sigudla. Thank you, Lunga. And again, thank you to Lebu within the Telkom mobile team, to you and your team for supporting the students in particular. It is a very complex space, trying to understand network fault management, especially in an environment as complex as Telkom Mobile. And your engineers, some of your senior managers in that space really took the time to teach the students how our networks at a high level are configured. They gave them some simple, safe data for them to share. Truly was a learning experience. Thank you for that. And as a last area, SATNAC theme this year was interesting. AI-driven hyper-connected future. And it took us a long time as a SATNAC leadership to think about this particular topic. So what we did was to throw it back to the students and say, how can this topic actually help us think about the future of industry? It was an open topic to say to students, where are we going with hyper-connectivity? And they had carte blanche to basically think about different industries where this can actually make a difference. And because we didn't have a sponsor, we asked the Vets Innovation Center, which actually hosts our R&D lab at Vets, to actually lead and guide the students in this area. So I'd like to call, again, the acting director of the Vets Innovation Center to come and help us to award this particular challenge winners. And Again, Mr. Letlotlo is also the co-director of our lab, our R&D lab at WITS, and he has also, and his team, actually been supporting the students, and will be helping us to take over some of the ideas and seeing them into implementation. So in this case, again, from WITS University, the winner of the SATNAC challenge on AI-driven hyperconnectivity and how it will actually disrupt industry is Swelihle Sibinya. Again, another individual who participated alone in this challenge. So again, we are really grateful to the Office of the Deputy Vice-Chancellor at WITS University for their continuous support in supporting us at Telkom. First, for allowing us to host our lab at WITS and for actually working with us over all the, as a very first lab that WITS is hosting as an industry lab, all of the groundwork that has been required to do this. So as a last stage, as SATNAC, as we've done the last previous years, we look at all of those winners and talk to the judges, the experts, the academics, and think about looking at the solutions. Which of these is most innovative? So we have what is actually a surprise this afternoon, the Ultimate SATNAC Innovator Award. This is awarded to a team that has shown significant effort into researching the area, significant effort into understanding the industry problems, and in fact having the most innovative solution that was presented. So I'd like to please ask for the acting chairperson of the SATNAC conference to come and help us in awarding this particular award, which we haven't yet announced. So I believe the participants are all keenly listening to understand who has in fact won the Ultimate SATNAC Innovator Award for 2024. And it gives me pleasure to announce that the team that has won this particular award is again the team that solved the problem. I'm waiting for the medals. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll try. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. You should keep it, okay. This does not in any way undermine the actual innovation that went into all the solutions, not only the ones that won, but all the participants that came in as well. But for the Ultimate Innovation Award for SATNAC 2024, this is the team from the University of Eswatini that solved the Telkom challenge on network fault management. So if you can come back to stage one more time, Samkelo Msibi, Tembinkosi Mkonta, and Pepile Sigodla. Congratulations for winning the SATNAC Innovator Award for 2024. That's Samkelo Msibi from the University of Eswatini. Tembinkosi Mkanda. They are part of one team that has solved this problem of network fault management using AI. Tembinkosi Mkanda from the University of Eswatini. And there's the last member of this team, Pepile Sigudla from the University of Eswatini. Again, a member of this team. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to Pushka as the acting chairperson, to Dr. Makiyanki as the chairperson of the SATNAC conference. And with that, we would like to say thank you to all our sponsors for supporting the students, for offering your executives and your experts in guiding them. And the last thing to announce is the students are actually getting awards from each of the sponsors. They're getting high-valued prizes. Various actual, technology devices, the electronic devices, and other equipment, ranging, up to about 9,000 rand. I think that's the highest value of the prize. And all of the students are getting in different formats what we are calling skills development prizes, because ultimately that's what the students benefit from. Many of these are internships, others are immersive experiences into the different companies' innovation hubs, and for many of them is also the opportunity to implement their ideas within the industries, within the companies that sponsored them. So thank you very much, and we look forward to taking this forward with the students and their universities as well. Thanks, Olati.
Thank you. Well done. Woo. Okay, now we really come to the end. Thank you so much for that. Please, can we give them another round of applause? I honestly think they deserve it. All right, just a few announcements before we wrap up. In fact, just two. There will be a COE heads meeting right here at this venue at the Indao room, which is at reception. If you go out, it's at 5:30, and I think it ends around 7:30. It is a hybrid meeting, but for those that are here, you're more than welcome to go to that room, Indao room. About the farewell dinner, it is going to be taking place here, 7 p.m. for 7:30. And if you are staying at the Kruger, let me just get that name, the Kruger Gate 1 Hotel, there will be a shuttle that leaves from there at 6:30 and will take you directly to this particular venue. The dress code, I'm told, is casual. There were reflector T-shirts that were in your delegation bag that you received at the start of the conference. You are requested to please wear that T-shirt on the day. It is theme-orientated. I think you'll see why when you arrive this evening. We will be hearing from the chair of a SATNAC conference, Dr. Mikey Yankees, in a short while as I wrap up. Lunch will be served immediately after that video that is going to be played. So this is essentially where I wrap the formalities, but I will be seeing you tonight, and I'm told it's going to be a spectacular farewell party. So please come with all of your smiles and ready to engage and also ready to party, I'm told, because it is the last one of this year. I also want to, during that night, of course, to engage. But before I wrap up, I want to just, to the students, give you this final word from me. Those who won here today and those who did not win but participated, I want to borrow the words of Theodore Roosevelt, if you may allow me. It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could not have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That's the message I have for you today. Keep going, keep trying. At least you are the man in the arena. And for the rest of you conference goers, I give you the words of Albert Einstein. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. Blue sky thinking, right? All right, let's hear then from the SATNAC conference chair. And thank you so much to everybody. I think it was said here today numerous times by all of our speakers, and Pushka, thank you so much for that. To the executives, to the sponsors, to the delegates, to everybody here, thank you so much for your attendance. But let's hear the final words from the SATNAC chairperson. Thank you so much.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of the conference, we're reminded that the foundation on which SATNAC stands transcends knowledge sharing, a contribution towards innovation and intellectual capital development, and reflects a much bigger purpose and impact. South Africa is considered to be one of the countries with the highest inequality rates. We also have yearly reflections of our unemployment rates standing at 34%, with youth represented at 45% within the statistic. Looking back at some of the previous SATNAC conferences, this statistic is often quoted by one speaker or the other, emphasizing and highlighting why our continued shared investment in the research centers of excellence, as well as in SATNAC, remains an important vehicle contributing towards addressing socio-economic challenges facing our country. It was with absolute pride that last year we launched a report that reflected that over 3,600 high-level technical skills postgraduate students in the STEM field have emerged from this collaboration, with many of the participants of the program now playing key leadership roles across the sector. From the opening remarks that set the stage for innovation to the closing discussions that have left us pondering on the limitless possibilities of artificial intelligence, this conference continues to reflect the importance of our collaboration across industries and sectors. Over the past 2 days, we have traversed a vast landscape of knowledge. We have reflected on the transformative potential of artificial intelligence, exploring its role in shaping autonomous networks, in driving ESG initiatives, and enabling carriers to stride towards an intelligent world. We have also contended with the ethical dimensions of AI, exploring the need for transparency, for safety, and aspects that ensure a level of trust with our customer data. We've unpacked first-hand applications of AI and how it is forging a hyper-personalized future while revolutionizing our customer experience as we know it. On the second day, we were then presented with an insightful panel discussion with thought-provoking discussions on how we redefine the very essence of the telecommunications sector. SATNAC has always been a catalyst for progress, and this year's conference was undoubtedly no different. The discussions, the insight, and collaborations fostered here will undoubtedly leave a mark on the knowledge economy. As we invest in the future of AI, let us also continue to invest in the future of human capital that drives our knowledge economy, that ensures the innovation and intellectual capital development, which continues to have an impact on our socio-economic challenges within the country. As the organizing committee, we want to deeply appreciate the leadership of the Telkom Group, the Telkom Board, key sponsors and partners who for the last 26 years have made SATNAC what it is today, academic institutions who carry the key role of empowering and enabling researchers and young academics who are represented here today. The dedication and the passion of partners has enriched our understanding of AI's potential and continues to play a key role in our collaborative effort to drive skills development as well as innovation within the country. To the winners of the SATNAC Industry Challenge and the Best Student Paper Awards, this is but the beginning of your journey. We extend our heartfelt congratulations to you. Your work exemplifies the spirit of innovation and serves as an inspiration for us all. As we depart from this conference, let us carry the torch of knowledge, of investing in the South African innovation sector, in the human capital that drives this innovation sector, and let us leverage the knowledge gained from this conference to continue to push boundaries within our sector, within our organizations. While SATNAC conference comes to an end, our contribution, our collaboration, our partnership, and our shared vision will continue to echo beyond the walls of this conference hall. A great appreciation to every single participant for this year, wishing you a safe journey, and we look forward to an amazing year to come and years to come of a continued SATNAC collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Now that the conference has ended, I can start my presentation. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the team, Chrissy and everyone. Angus, thank you for organizing this, and especially Unnati. Thank you for running the show so fluidly, smoothly, AC, no AC, but thank you very much. And thank you everyone for participating.